You got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair. Down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third. And they're going to wave him around. The throw misses a cutoff man. Shot into the plate. Out of the plate. Derek Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and yes, I am donning the alma mater, the Ohio University Bobcats. We'll get to them here in just a second. I've got a little delay in my ear here. Oh, is that what this is? Okay. All right, I had that on last night to listen to Stephen A. Smith go at it with Paul Feinbaum over Alabama. And Feinbaum, who is the king of the SEC, right? He says that everybody's catching up with Alabama. Said this is now 5 years where Alabama's only won one national championship, where it used to be kind of an every other year thing. But I drift off. We get back to the Bobcats in a minute. Good morning, and welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Tom Brennaman. We come your way every single day from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. You can find us at Chatterbox Sports, YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. Many of you are in the house already. We appreciate you being here. We ask you to please subscribe and flip on the notification switch. If you prefer to join us in podcast form, by all means, please do. Search Off the Bench with Tom Brennaman and you're dialed in. Joe Mixon, not a surprise, named the AFC's Offensive Player of the Week. After rushing for 153 yards, he had receiving for 58, scores a franchise record 5 touchdowns in the rout of Carolina. Bengals are off this week, play the Steelers. Again, that game was moved. 4:25 in the afternoon next Sunday, not a Sunday night game. All right, now on to college football. Week 2 of the college football playoff rankings released last night. No surprise, Georgia, after hammering Tennessee, is the new number 1. The mighty Ohio State Buckeyes are at number 2, Michigan, number 3, and guess, boys, who jumped to number 4? Paul, you're sporting the purple and white.
Look, if there's ever a day to wear this, I'm going to wear it today.
The Horned Frogs of TCU, number 4. We love it. Now, they are a 7-point underdog, having said that, this Saturday at Texas. Tennessee goes from number 1 down to number 5, and man, do things get interesting after that. You've got Oregon with 1 loss at 6, and then you have LSU after beating Alabama. 2 losses, not one time in the brief history of the college football playoff. I believe 2014 was the first year. There has not been a 2-loss team to make the college football playoff. Would LSU do that if it wins out and right through the SEC championship game? News and notes around the NFL. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said on his weekly radio show yesterday the team is interested in former star Odell Beckham Jr. The former Ram tore his ACL, you may remember, in last year's Super Bowl against the Bengals, and is starting to draw interest as he rehabs. The Cowboys rank 25th in passing offense and have not had a player eclipse 100 receiving yards in a game so far this year. The Indianapolis Colts thing gets weirder by the day. They named Jeff Saturday, who's never been a head coach except the high school level. He takes over, leaving ESPN. Now he's a head coach. But get this. They now have a new offensive play caller who's never done it before, anywhere, not one time. And who knows? Maybe Parks Frazier will be great at it. You think you can do it? I know I think I can do it. Maybe he's the perfect guy for the gig. The Colts take on the Raiders this Sunday. Frazier, by the way, an ordained minister and a former quarterback at Murray State. And last but not least, we're going to get to Marty Brennaman here in a second. because his longtime partner and I used to battle back and forth all the time. He loved Miami. He still does in heaven above. But unfortunately for him, they have to play Ohio University every year in football. 37-21, the Bobcats roll in Oxford last night. This quarterback for OU, they got a good team. I mean, all bias aside, they got a really nice-looking team. Quarterback throws for 362 yards and 3 touchdowns. Curtis Rourke this year has thrown 24 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. The Bobcats rush for nearly 200 on top of all the passing and sit alone atop the MAC East at 7-3 on the season, boys. How about that?
Bobcats.
That was a tail kicking last night.
It was. Strong second half. Real strong second half. They closed the game well. Maction, it delivered last night.
It did. It delivered. There were some good games in Maction last night, and they still have a couple of more weeks at it. Coming up on the show today, as you know, Wednesdays are the big interview, and we have Dr. Timothy Kremchek today, the medical director of the Cincinnati Reds, but also one of the most famous and well-known and respected surgeons, especially when it comes to Tommy John surgery. We will get to him right around 10:45. But every Wednesday, we're also joined by the Hall of Famer and my dad, Marty Brennaman. Look at this shot behind you right now. My, oh my, oh my. Where are you right now, Dad? That looks unbelievable.
Well, let me tell you one thing. Had it not been for Amanda, you would not have gotten this shot. You would have gotten shot of a bunch of poles and just crap. But we have set this thing up. We've worked our butt off this morning to get this thing right, and thank God that she's able to do it so you guys can get a feel of the island of Bonaire in the Caribbean and check the water out. I mean, you've never seen anything more beautiful as far as this water is concerned.
So you're down there on this Reds cruise. You've been going on that thing, what, 30, 35, 40 years, what?
This is a 38.
Unbelievable. And it used to be, Dad, in the old days, you got some of the current players. I don't know if you have any of them anymore, but you certainly get some of the former big-time stars of the Reds, and that continues now on this one, right?
Well, big time would be loosely put. We have Jack Billingham with us. We have Jim Maloney with us. We have one of the funniest human beings in the history of baseball or any other venue or occupation on earth, and that would be Dimitri Young.
Yep.
And me. I'm the lesser of the evils. And Joe Oliver, pardon me. Joe Oliver's a part of it. And obviously Joe attracts a lot of interest because of his base hit in Game 2 of the World Series in 1990 off Dennis Eckersley. And so it's been a nice group. We traveled to Aruba. We have traveled to Curacao, and then here in Bonaire, and then we're at sea 4 days. So it's a pretty nice cruise.
Well, that's really, really nice. Weather looks great. Water looks beautiful. You've got the donning the what is that? That shirt. That's made by who? I've seen that logo before.
What shirt?
The one you have on right now. I mean, what would I be talking about? Some dude walking down by the lighthouse down there?
Huh?
Who would I be talking about? Some dude wearing a shirt in that lighthouse behind you down there?
How can I? You want me to turn around and look? I'm going to let you see it. Wait a
No,
minute.
I'm talking about your shirt. That's a big league shirt. Look at that.
Here's the town now.
I think Tracy's a bit jealous.
That's big time. When you go down there, do people recognize Marty Brennaman like they do when you're walking around in Kroger and UDF and all that kind of thing?
That would be a big old no. That would not happen. No. That would not happen.
On the boat, I'm assuming, I mentioned at the outset, I have on my Ohio University green and white after just demolishing Miami of Ohio last night. Some of my favorite moments with your longtime partner and our dear friend, Joe Nuxall, going back and forth with the old left-hander about Ohio University playing Miami and who would win the game. And it's become a regular occurrence that OU just dominates Miami.
Yeah, well, you know what I find interesting about all that stuff you were talking about before you got me on? if Miami had reversed that score and won last night, that OU sweatshirt you got on would still be in the drawer at home.
Well, so what?
Front runner.
Guys, have I been on the OU bandwagon all year long or not?
Yeah, you have.
I've been on the OU bandwagon all year long. When they went on the road and they played Penn State and they played Iowa State, all these big-time games getting ready for conference play, I said just look out. When OU gets back in the
What's
MAC,
OU's record?
they are 7-3, won 5 in a row, sitting in first place in the Mid-American Conference.
Was the game in Athens or in Oxford?
It was in Oxford, and it was just a disaster for Miami. That's all you can say.
Were you there?
No, I was not. Paul Fritzner suggested we go up there to the game last night.
And you said no.
Well, I couldn't. I had too much going on at home, and so, that's okay. I'm going to get to a basketball game sometime this year. And
Can I address this topic to Paul for a second?
Of course.
Sure.
Paul, had you invited him to go see Ohio State in Oxford, he'd have been there.
I have a feeling you're right on that one, Marty.
Yep.
What did you think about TCU being ranked number 4 now?
I think it's spectacular. I really do. Obviously, they can't. They're in much the similar situation as UC was last year because I think the powers that be don't want schools like UC or TCU or schools like that to be amongst the Final Four. So I don't think they can stub their toe between now and the end of the season. But if they were to run the table the rest of the season, now a very short season, it would be off. You couldn't keep them out. They'd have to be in the Final Four. And I think what they've done behind that quarterback, Max Duggan, spectacular, and they're fun a team to watch play.
They are. They're really fun to watch. Have you had a chance, and I don't know if you have or not, I would imagine the answer is yes. Have you had a chance to have any communication with Dusty Baker since winning the World Series?
I just text him. That's all. I text him and he texts me back, and that's been the extent of it. I didn't want to bother the heck out of him. In fact, I didn't even send him a text until 2 days after the World Series ended because I knew he'd been inundated, and he responded right back. And I'm still basking in his glory, as I think a lot of people are, over the fact that he won the thing and won it convincingly after they trailed 2-1. There was no question who had the best baseball team once the dust had settled in Houston. And I couldn't be happier for anybody outside of a relative for him to have the success that he's had, and is finally lit the candle on top of the cake once and for all.
I had some text communication with him briefly yesterday. We're trying to get him to be part of the big interview, and right. He said he would be happy to do it. But today, after yesterday, he had a meeting with the owner, Jim Crane, down there with the Astros, and the general manager. There was a lot of dissension, and exactly who it was between or among, I'm not sure any of us is exactly sure. But there seemed to be some things going on there that would not be in concert with a team during the year that was dominant, first place in their division almost the entire year, all of this taking place before the World Series. Do you think that he should, and I know that you're not going to make decisions for Dusty Baker, but do you think he should or will continue to manage?
Well, the owner, Jim Crane, came out yesterday and said he's back next year.
Yeah.
So I got mixed emotions about that, Tom. He's been struggling like the dickens to win a world championship, and he's done it. I don't think anybody will ever throw any charity benefits to raise funds for anything that Dusty Baker might need. I think he's extremely well off. And if there was ever a scintilla of doubt that he would be in the Hall of Fame, he put that to rest by winning a series. So I don't, other than still has a fire burning in his stomach to, okay, now I've finally gotten one, I want to go try and win two. And let's face it, he's got a pretty good baseball team coming back next year.
Yep.
It's not a case of, the personnel is going to change, and you know what happens when that. Most of those people that were productive or were on that roster this year are going to be back next year. I don't know. It's like Tom Brady, although Brady's situation is much more exaggerated given the fact he's won all the Super Bowls. But I'm sure there's something else that still drives Dusty Baker, and that being the case, if he wants to come back, and I know he does, then God bless him for it. Maybe make it back-to-back World Series wins.
You went through this and I used to have this conversation on a semi-regular basis with Harry Carey when I worked with Harry in Chicago. And every blue moon, the topic would come up about retiring. And he used to say all the time, he says, there's no way I'm retiring. He says, there's no chance. It keeps me vibrant, keeps me young, keeps me alive, keeps me moving, all those sorts of things. You were still alive and vibrant and still moving and all those kinds of things. You have been able to adjust to retirement very, very well. You know Dusty well. He's got a lot going on outside of baseball. But Dad, I got to tell you, I mean, what little I know of Dusty, he strikes me as the kind of guy, and you mentioned he's going to be back next year, but he strikes me as the kind of guy with all the other things he has going on in his life, that baseball is by far, and being a baseball manager, it is by far, outside of his family, the number one most important thing in his life.
No question whatsoever. I mean, he owns a winery. He is invested incredibly well. Like I said, he's taken care of his future. But I don't think there's whatever is second is such a distant second that you can't see it in terms of his passions outside of his family. And that's the reason why I said if it's important for him to be back, and I know he's still a vibrant, vivacious, energetic kind of guy, as long as he's got his health, and this is something that really has an overwhelming appeal for him to come back rather than walk away with a world championship. I'm going to roll the dice and try to do it again. I'm happy for him. I think baseball is better off for having Dusty Baker involved in it. And so if he wants to come back, I'm good for that without any question whatsoever.
Let's shift gears here a second to the Reds. And I know that you're not privy to all the inside information and everything going on down there and what they're going to do or not going to do. And we've said before here, you are still a member of the Reds staff. And so, we're not going to get into picking apart this, or this. But knowing you have a stable of what appears to be really good young starting pitching, we saw a lot of that this year, Lodolo, Hunter Green, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think – I wonder who they're going to put on the field besides Stevenson, India, Farmer, and Votto. Do you suspect that they go out and start making moves like the Tommy Phams of the world again, waiting on these young minor league players? Or do you think, they're going to bring back some guys that played last year that were just okay, if not below okay at best?
Well, I don't think they can I agree with what you say about pitching. I think they just have to do some adjustment as far as pitching is concerned. I think they're casting their lot on the Hunter Greens and the Nick Lodolos and the Graham Ashcrafts and maybe a guy like Connor Overton and some other people to give them a relatively solid rotation, albeit a young one. And I think that given the number of people they had who were not available to them this past year, like T.J. Antone and Lucas Sims and people like that were on the DL almost virtually the entire year. They've got some guys that can help that bullpen immediately and make it a much better bullpen, which is something I think they have to do. But having said that, and that's all about pitching, I don't see how they're going to score a whole lot of runs, to be honest with you, unless they go out and come up with something better than a Tommy Pham. Do I think they'll do that? I have my doubts because I still think that they're looking toward reducing the payroll even more in 2023 than they operated under in 2022. And I don't care how good your pitching is. And I bring up a prime example of that, and that was a Reds team that lost 100 games back in the early 80s. You go back and you look at that team's pitching staff, they had an ERA, I believe, of somewhere between 340 and 350. So their pitching was pretty good. They could not score runs, and they lost 100 games, 101 games, whatever it was. I think they have to address the offense, and I think they have to do it with some faces that we're not familiar with, because if they're going to continue to experiment, and I put that in quotes, with people like Jose Barrero and Aristides Aquino, I don't care how many home runs they hit. They hardly ever make contact, and their strikeout numbers are incredibly high. I just think, and don't discount the possibility now they couldn't trade Kyle Farmer, because I think Kyle Farmer would have some appeal. And I'm, like I said, I still think they're going to lower their payroll even more than it was this year. And so I think they're in a heck of a quandary if they're going to go out and try to produce a team that will show an improvement over this past season. And God knows it can't get any worse, I don't think. Then they've got to do something about their offense, and how they're going to do that, I have no idea.
We have an entire winter to talk about this, but I would imagine it's passed through your thoughts, maybe not frequently, certainly not. But this is the final year of Joey Votto's contract, the 10-year deal he signed for $250 million, I think it was. This is the final year of that deal. Now, the Reds do have an option to pick up for the following year. There's no way they're going to pick up that option for that kind of money. I think we all agree on that. Do you think there should be – I'm not going to call it a goodbye tour, because Votto has already said that after watching some other guys around the league, he thinks he can continue to play and wants to continue to play. He's got to come back from this very serious injury. He's rehabbing that, no doubt, 24/7. That's who he's all about. But how do you think this season is going to play out? Not necessarily from a production standpoint. I'm talking about from a fan standpoint, an organization standpoint, an emotional standpoint for Joey Votto in 2023. Any guess on that?
Well, I think from an emotional standpoint, it's going to be a tough year for a lot of Reds fans who are dyed-in-the-wool Joey Votto fans and have been forever. I don't know. He thinks he can bounce back and attributes the year he had more or less to not one but two injuries that have since been repaired, and that he will bounce back and have a big year next year. But at the same time, as long as he stays healthy and doesn't have to deal with the problems he had to deal with this past year, he's going in that lineup every single day, whether he's hitting 315 or he's hitting 215. It's not going to make any difference, and they're going to continue to hit him in a run-producing situation, and that's the way it's going to be. And so I think that this is a guy who has tremendous confidence in himself and the ability, even at a rather advanced age for baseball players and being productive, to bounce back and have the kind of year that make people turn the clock back to years of greater productivity that Joey Votto certainly can put his name next to. But I think there's a lot of things up in the air about Joey Votto. I cannot imagine, as you said, they've got a $7 billion buyout or whatever you want to call it at the end of this $25 billion 2023 coming up, and they will certainly not, I would not think, extend him with a contract beyond the end of the 2023 season. I don't know. It's going to be a tough situation, but at the same time, I really truly believe, and I say this publicly, and I'm not ashamed of saying it, when people, that are huge Joey Votto fans, so great that they have no objectivity, and they talk about Hall of Fame and first ballot Hall of Fame. For one thing, I'm not 100% certain that he's a Hall of Fame player to begin with. I think he's had too many down years, but I would bet the ranch that he will not be a first ballot Hall of Fame. The one thing he's going to have going for him when that 5-year period goes away and he's eligible is he's going to have the kind of numbers over a career that the analytic junkies lose their minds gloriously over. A lot of walks, great on-base percentage, and I think that will enhance his chances of being in the Hall of Fame. And it will depend upon what kind of class that he has, the competition he would have if he has aspirations of being a first ballot Hall of Famer. The whole thing, it creates a very interesting situation, but you can bet the ranch whether he's producing in 2023 on a daily basis or he's not producing. If he stays healthy, he's going to be at first base the entire season.
All right. Speaking of Hall of Fame, it's the last thing I'm going to ask you about because I am really scratching my head. I think it was John Heyman in New York who wrote this column a couple of days ago. I don't know if you saw it. But when they got down to the final 8 or 10 guys on the Hall of Fame ballot this year, Rafael Palmeiro is on that list. Sammy Sosa is not on that list. Now, I only bring those two names up, and I'm just, following Heyman's lead on this thing. No credit to me. Palmeiro was caught cheating. He lied to Congress. The list goes on and on and on and on. Okay? He had an incredible career. I mean, the guy had 500 home runs. He had over 3,000 hits, and there aren't a handful of those guys in the history of baseball. Great player. Sammy Sosa, while many people believe he may have been involved in performance-enhancing drugs, it's never been proven. There's never been a test that he's failed, none of those kinds of things. And there's no doubt his numbers warrant going to the Hall of Fame. How does that happen while Palmeiro is in and Sosa is out?
I think it's strictly a personal feeling. It would be interesting for John Heyman to come back and write an addendum to that piece and explain exactly the question you have, because if Paul is in John's mind among the top 10 that I'm a son of a gun, then you tell me why Sammy Sosa isn't. I don't understand it. But I will say that I don't know. I'm firmly of the belief, Tom, that a lot of guys that are in the Baseball Writers Association allow their personal preferences to come into play. A guy may have made them mad or refused to do an interview at one time. So I don't care how good a career he is. I thought he was a jerk, and I'm not going to put him on my ballot. And I believe that there are people around here like that. I truly do. I don't know. It's hard to imagine. You're going to put them all in. And if my memories serve me correctly, Bonds was there, Clemens was there.
Yep.
Palmeiro, you mentioned. Sammy wasn't. Kurt Schilling, for other reasons, was also on that list. If you're going to have all those guys in and don't have Sammy Sosa in there, something's wrong. Wrong. I don't understand that.
I don't understand it either. Well, what do you got planned today? Are you getting off the boat, or are you just sitting out there on the deck and enjoying the sunshine and a cocktail or two? What do you got going on?
We're going to go out and walk the town a little bit. Try to find a Christmas ornament, because we have our Christmas tree is adorned with Christmas ornaments of all the places we've been around the world. And we're going to do that. Then I don't know what we'll do. We might lay out on the deck, get a little bit more sun. I've got about as much as I can handle, but we may do that and read my book. And, it's been a very, very relaxing time, and we've had a wonderful time with our good friends Jack and Cheryl Matthews and Rusty and Renee Frankel and all the players I told you about. We've had a good time. This is a great cruise. 38 years, already scheduled for one in 2023. And hopefully it'll continue thanks to my good friend Herb Rosenfeld and the folks at Provident Travel.
Yep. All right. Well, enjoy it. We are jealous and envious, even though it's a beautiful sunny day here in Hamilton, Ohio, but it ain't the Caribbean.
The regret I have about this particular session is I've not had a chance to publicly say hello and how is my good friend Casey doing?
I'm doing great, Marty. I'm doing really good. Me and Paul wanted to show you something. I'm going to zoom in here. Let me get my camera all set up here. All right, hang on.
There we go.
You see this?
You see what those are, Dad?
What, that bobblehead?
No, the
baseball
cards, the baseball cards.
Oh, the baseball card. You got Tracy Jones there.
Yeah. What do you think of those? What do you think of those cards?
Well, it's weak. Is what it is. It's really weak. He has a certain pallor about his skin that looks like they just dug him up. But I want you guys, when you have him on again Thursday, right, Tom, or today?
Yep.
No, Thursday.
Yep.
I was watching. There is a documentary about Nolan Ryan on Netflix, which is a spectacular piece. And I say that in all seriousness. I always thought, he was one of the great pitchers of all time. But after watching this thing, you just scratch your head and have a hard time coming to grips with how a guy can hold, or at one time held, 51 major league pitching records. They have a lot of quick cuts in that documentary of doing what Nolan did best, and that's striking people out. Lo and behold, what pops up? But Tracy Jones standing there, striking out and looking like a washerwoman in the process. He wanted to get out of that batter's butt. He swung at a pitch that he could not have hit with an ironing board that was up and away, and then almost fell down, but couldn't wait to get back to that dugout. I had to rewind it to make sure it was him, and it was. So just, if you get a chance to remember, just run that by him a bit when you all have him on Thursday.
Well, fellas, what we're going to do is we're going to edit that clip right there by my dad, and before Tracy Jones comes on the air tomorrow, we will run that clip.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, now I'm trying to remember where it was exact. I think it was more
I'll tell
toward...
you, he'll tell you that may have happened. He'll admit that, but he'll tell you that I don't know if it was that game or not, but there was another game where he hit a rocket off Nolan Ryan, and he likes to talk about that.
Well, okay, let him talk about that rocket, but also watch it look like it was embarrassing, is what it was. I mean, you can strike out with a tremendous amount of class and maintain your balance and look what the swing is picture perfect. You just couldn't catch up with the pitch. Not in this case. Now you all got to get that and run it by him tomorrow.
All right, fellas, we'll do that.
We can do that.
All right, Dad. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the trip. Be careful. Godspeed ahead.
All right, pal. We love you, and give our best to Polly and Ella and Luke.
We'll do it. We love you too. Absolutely. Ella's on her
All
way
right,
to
pal.
Austin, Texas on Friday for the big one down
Big
in Austin.
football game.
TCU v.
That's a big
Texas Longhorns. We got some clowns on
Be
this
a major
chat room.
step.
We got a lot of clowns, including my good friend and yours, Sir Boy Wonder, who says, unfortunately, I think
sure.
Texas wins this weekend. You used to be my friend, Sir Boy Wonder. You used to be my friend. Dad, have fun.
All right, pal. We love you.
We love you too. All right, coming up, we have my dad's good friend, another good friend, Dr. Timothy Kremchek. This is going to be an interesting interview, okay, because, we're going to get into a lot of the stuff that Kremchek has done through the years, some of the people he's operated on. He's one of the most well-known surgeons on the globe for repairing the Tommy John surgery you hear so much about. But one of the things that he has been a real crusader for is the abuse by coaches all the way down at the knothole level through high school and college of young pitchers' arms, kids. So for some of you out there who maybe have a son or a daughter, or maybe a nephew or a niece, or a grandkid who's playing Little League Baseball, I think you're going to find some of his thoughts on this quite interesting because he is sought after all over the country by people and his thoughts on, how much do you pitch guys. There's that great debate. You talk to some of the old school guys and they'll say you build the arm up by throwing more. Some of the new age stuff in the analytics, we saw it even at the major league level a couple of years ago in the World Series. You're taking pitchers out of starting that are dominating a game. Kevin Cash did it with Tampa Bay 2 years ago. They take a guy out of a game who's right around the 100 pitch mark, and the Dodgers can't touch him. And the second he comes out of the game, that's all she wrote, Dodgers win. So a lot to talk about with Dr. Timothy Kremchek. He is the big interview, and it's coming up right around the corner on Off the Bench.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
And you look this up in a medical book, he's got FSB.
FS what?
FSB. It's short for fatal sperm backup.
Oh, my God.
Tom, see, the married men know what I'm talking about. I didn't have this until I got married, but I've got the affliction a little bit at times. And Tom, do you ever suffer now that you don't have that job with Fox and you're not bringing home the big checks? Do you have FSB?
You know what? I get it. I totally get what you're saying.
There's a lot of truth to that.
I can't believe I'm admitting this on a show we're just starting. That we're talking about the acronym of FSB.
What is
that
it?
what you said?
Say it, Tom.
FSB.
No, not the acronym. Say the whole thing. The 3 words.
Sperm backup. Is that right?
There we go.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, you know, we've experienced it since we got married, but ask those 2 guys, the producers. Now, they've experienced that their whole life, so they really don't see any adjustment. They've experienced it. They've had it their own life.
Well, I thought you were making the argument that this only hits married men. I thought that's what you were saying. These guys aren't married.
Well, I know, but they're not getting any. So they have FSB.
If I'm giving you some advice, I would stay away from gritties. I would just keep it to a simple 2-step. And I think baby steps.
Whoa. What? You would stay away from gritties? Why? You said you haven't seen it. I might have been great on it.
All right. I'm not going to place judgment yet. But based off of the information you've already given me, saying I'm an older white guy, you're already setting yourself up for something that I'm going to look at and I'm going to be like, I don't know about this one, Tom. I don't think you need to go hoodies and stuff. I think you just have to sacrifice something for the greater good of Houday. If you want the wins, you got to scruff it up a little bit.
Okay, I'll scruff it up Monday. I'll let it grow all weekend long and I'll come in scruffed up Monday. Is that cool?
If we win, though, you know what's going to happen. Everybody that's watching this now is going to say, Tom, you got to keep the beard going.
That's fine. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with that at all. My wife would. That's our main man, Zim Houday. I mean, he got all kinds of pub again, all kinds of views on social media coming after our boss yesterday if you weren't with us. I mean, he was all over Trace Fowler yesterday.
He's scared of him.
Yeah, he kind of beat them into submission.
Trace jumped in the Twitter discussion yesterday, and he got all over him.
He did?
He did, yeah.
What was this on Zim's show with Ace Boogie?
No.
Cincinnati, is that the name of it? Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati. Yeah. No, this was like a Twitter space discussion. He does that like every day. He goes into like a Twitter space and talks to like 50 to 100 people on Twitter, and they all just discuss Bengals content and whatnot. But Trace got in there, and he ripped him another new one. So
did he really?
He did.
Wow. And what was Zim's reaction? Did he come back after him? Or I mean, I saw where Trace posted that clip we had yesterday where he was talking about Trace, called him the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, I mean, Trace just went right into that Twitter space and just knocked down the hopes and dreams of every Bengals fan that was in there. It was a rough scene.
It was. It was a murder scene, honestly.
Beat us down in here. That Browns week. What a weird word.
And there's another one coming.
I know there is, Tom.
Next time, the Brownies come here, and
it's all right. They stink.
Joe Burrow will still be looking for his first career victory. Brownies fans love talking about that. I mean, they may not have much else to talk about, although I still think they're going to have a decent year. But they love that whole thing.
What do you got, Casey?
Nothing. We got nothing.
My favorite 3 broadcasters. This is from KC, it looks like, on in the chat.
Well, there's some, it looks like, is that Japanese? Is that Korean? What is that?
I don't know.
I
don't know. My favorite 3 broadcaster sports show hosts of all time, in no particular order: Mike Francesa, Tom Brennaman, and Colin Cowherd.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow. I'd love for our show to get as popular as those 2 guys. They got it going on.
Yeah.
Colin Cowherd's on Fox every day, radio all across the country, television. Mike Francesa, he was legendary in New York City. He was with a Mad Dog, who, by the way, we're going to have on one of these days, the Mad Dog, Chris Russo, on the big interview. I like that guy. I've done him a lot of favors through the years. He owes me a couple. And we are working on the next couple of weeks. We told you that Dusty Baker has agreed to come on the program. We just got to nail down which Wednesday it's going to be. Hopefully it's this coming Wednesday, but we'll keep you posted and let you know. And then I had contact yesterday, and I owe him a phone call back this morning with recent inductee to the Basketball Hall of Fame, former UC legendary coach, now West Virginia, Bob Huggins.
Oh,
Huggy Bear.
Well, let's get him on the week before he's here. He'll be in town.
What is the date of that?
In 2 weeks. It's the week after Thanksgiving.
That would be a perfect week to do Huggy Bear.
Yep.
Perfect. And that week of the Ohio State-Michigan game, which is in 2 weeks, I spent a little time with Urban Meyer over the weekend, and he is going to come on and be the big interview on that Wednesday before Ohio State v. Michigan. How big will that game be?
I
mean, in the history of that game, and I know there's some Ohio State or Michigan fan out there that'll say, well, what about fill in the blank? And they'd be right. But I'm not so sure there's more on the line than the game if both of them win the next 2 weeks, which they should. How big that game is going to be in Columbus.
Yeah. What one of those games can you think of off the top of your head that would be bigger than this one?
Well, I'll tell you the one 2 years ago, and I was there when Urban ran it up, or it was 3 or 4 years ago. They were in the top, both of them in the top 5, and Urban ran it up on them. Was trying to score 70 against Michigan. 70. And were it not for a player getting injured on that last drive when they had the ball at about the 8-yard line, they would have scored 70 against Michigan. But it's a little bit different Michigan team now. All right. It's time to get started because he's checking in from his palatial estate at Beacon Orthopedics. We'll have him lined up here in a moment, but We mentioned our big interview today is Dr. Timothy Kremchek, one of the most well-known and respected surgeons in the United States. Yes, he's operated on the likes of Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Larkin, but most of his work over the last 35 years has been done on people just like you and me. He operated on one of my knees a number of years ago. He started and owns Beacon Orthopedics in his hometown of Cincinnati, where his father, Edward, was also a renowned doctor. He was recently named as one of the top 10 doctors in Major League Baseball, but is considered to be one of the 2 or 3 top surgeons in the sport, especially when a pitcher needs Tommy John surgery. Kremchek served a fellowship under Dr. James Andrews, who certainly helped his rise in the field. For those in Cincinnati, his generosity in the community and his commitment to young people is really unmatched anywhere. Every Friday night, for 35 years, you'll see him walking up and down the sidelines of a local high school football game or on a Tuesday night at a girls' soccer game. That's been going on for decades. He and his wife Hillary recently donated the brand-new baseball field at famed Cincinnati Moeller High School, where he and his father have served as the school's team doctors going all the way back to the 1960s. We mentioned a moment ago, he's also been on a crusade to save the arms of young pitchers, your sons, your daughters, your grandsons, your granddaughters. And his views are certainly sought out by medical experts and baseball coaches all over the country. And for a little fun, he's also medically served rock and rollers like the Rolling Stones and Kiss. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Dr. Kremchek, good morning. Hope you're doing well today. Have you been in surgery or just seeing patients today? What do you have going on?
Just seeing patients today. Today's one of my lighter days. Yesterday was a surgery day.
How many surgeries would you do in one day, like yesterday?
Yesterday, I think I did 14.
And but those are a little bit of everything?
Yeah, ACLs, we call ladder J's, big open shoulder procedures, Tommy Johns, rotator cuff repairs, kind of the gamut.
All right, I'm going to ask you, I assume he's got his audio on his computer, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so if you can hit that mute button, then that way we don't hear my voice over and over. It makes enough people sick as it is.
Yep.
I mentioned when you were growing up, and I think a lot of us, I certainly assumed this, that you were a lifelong born and raised Cincinnati. And we mentioned your father, a doctor growing up. But your first baseball experience actually came in Boston, right?
My father was at Westover Air Force Base. We lived in Chicopee, Massachusetts, and I was a diehard Red Sox fan. We're talking about 1967 when the Red Sox went to the World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals, Bob Gibson. I can tell you the entire lineup for both teams, for St. Louis and Boston. Big, huge Red Sox fan. Loved Carl Yastrzemski, Tony Conigliaro, Ken the Hawk Harrelson. I used to go to bed at night listening to my radio with one of those little white earphones and put it underneath my pillow. So absolutely. And I mean, I started with baseball that way until we moved to Cincinnati in 1968 when my father went into practice. And the first thing he did was an 805 Reds Cardinals, Bob Gibson on the mound against Jerry Arrigo and the Cincinnati Reds at Crossley Field on a bobblehead night. By the way, it was a bobblehead night.
Come on. They had bobbleheads in the 1960s?
Well, no. This was the late 60s, and it was a Cincinnati Reds, Mr. Red bobblehead.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it wasn't And so, but yeah, I mean, this went all the way, and that's when I started. I played baseball back then as a 5-year-old, loved the game. Actually loved the Red Sox. I mean, I'll never forget my father, when I was 9 years old, it was a 2-hour drive to Fenway Park. And after the game, we went down behind Fenway Park, and where the players would come out, Jim Lomborg and all these guys were coming out. All I wanted was an autograph. Well, I couldn't get them. It was packed. And my father wrote a letter to Mr. Yockey at the time. It said, my 9-year-old son, it's his birthday, and nothing. So all of a sudden, a few weeks later, there's this ball that's signed by every member of the Boston Red Sox. It was actually my father who signed it. I just had no idea the signature was the same. The names are just different.
That's a great story. You moved to Cincinnati. You talked about your dad, a real pioneer in sports medicine and sports procedures. He gets involved with Moeller High School. And at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right around the time when Jerry Faust is the head football coach at Moeller. Do you remember meeting him, being around him, any of that kind of thing growing up?
Guys. Yeah, there's a guy named Hank Sanciola who was a primary care doctor whose sons ended up going to Moeller High School, and he would take care of them probably, and started in the late 60s. Well, back then, sports medicine was in its infancy, and they didn't have orthopedists that took care of teams, but my father loved it. He got to meet Jerry. Jerry was so engaging, so into this. The Moeller program was, it was 8 years into its the beginnings. And Jerry Faust was just a huge part of my growing up. Jerry and my father became very, very good friends. I mean, it's every Saturday morning during the football season, the phone would ring around 7:30. That's when we had phones, not cell phones. And it was Jerry on the phone with that raspy voice going, "Doc, I got these players." And he'd bring them over to the house around 9 o'clock. There'd be about 8 of them. And these guys were man mountains standing there. And, Jerry just wanted to make sure that they were going to be okay, what they needed to do so they could play and move on. And I mean, it was the beginning of a relationship that all of us wish we have with our high schools and our programs of trust and getting these kids back and doing things for the right reason. But, oh, yeah, Jerry Faust is a huge personality. Not to get ahead of myself here, but when Jerry was given a job or got the job to go to Notre Dame, he wanted to take my father with him to be the doctor at Notre Dame.
No kidding. Did your dad think about that?
He did. I mean, what a great honor. But us being in school and I have 3 brothers. We're growing up here, probably wasn't the right thing to do for the family. And in retrospect, it certainly wasn't the right thing to do. So thinking of us, but, he loved Moeller football. It was back then, it was Princeton Moeller. These games were incredible. Even though I didn't go to Moeller, I went to Indian Hill. I'll never forget when I was a freshman, my dad said, "Jerry wants you to come up to practice." And because he wanted me to go to Moeller. I mean, if I went to Moeller, things would have been a lot simpler. And the access, everything. So I go up there, and I'll never forget. There's old Tim Cagle, Bob Crable. I guess it was a sophomore. Bob Crable was a freshman. Big Jim Brown, the offensive line. A guy named Paul Messong. I'm looking at these guys saying, I might be on the team, but there is not a chance I'm going to make it through practice. And so I stayed at Indian Hill and played, and I think it was better for my health. Let's just put it that way.
You were a very good baseball player, and you decided to go play at Wittenberg. Had you already decided, maybe long before you went to college, that you were going to follow in your father's footsteps?
All of us, everybody, you ask any kid now, and I ask all these kids when they come to my office, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they all want to be, the little guys, they all want to be baseball players, football players, basketball players. That's what I wanted to do. I loved baseball. I loved the game. I mean, I was a huge, when we moved to Cincinnati, huge Cincinnati Reds fan. All of the players, Bench Rose, Morgan, Perez, all of these guys. I mean, I watched every game on TV, used to go to a ton of games. That's what I wanted to do. And, you go to school like Indian Hill and you're pretty good. And I ended up going to Wittenberg and getting to play relatively early. But I recognized pretty soon after that that was going to be the end of my baseball career, and I had to do something else. Quite honestly, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. And my father said, "Why don't you come and," my grades weren't the greatest my first year. He said, "Why don't you come and work with me over Christmas break?" And I did. And I spent 6 weeks. I'd go to the operating room, see patients. I saw how he did what he did, why he did what he did. And after that day, I said, I want to be a sports doctor. That's what I want to be. I didn't know what kind. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I wanted to be a sports doctor. I wanted to be involved with sports, involved with the team, be a part of everything that they did. And it wasn't until I got to Boston, which really turned my life around as far as what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, who I met. And after that, it's just been a whirlwind.
What happened in Boston?
Well, I was a fourth-year medical student. I got into medical school, knew this is what I wanted to do, and I did a rotation at the New England Baptist Hospital, which was a affiliate of Harvard. Well, obviously, that was off Parker Hill Avenue, and it was about 3 miles from Fenway Park. But one of the reasons I wanted to go there, because was thinking of doing my residency there. And so on a Saturday, the nighttime, I would go down to the ballpark. Well, one night this is 1985, July of 85, I spent a month. And I'm standing down where the players go in, and this lady with gray hair and dark glasses said to me, "You look like you're lost. Do you have a ticket?" I mean, I was in a polo shirt and blue jeans. I looked like a regular guy. And it was Mrs. Yockey. And she took me up to her box, and we sat up there and watched the game. And the next night, she invited me again. She asked me what I wanted to do. Downstairs, she met me. There was a guy named, I think Lou Gorman was his name. He was the general manager. Introduced me to him. And that was the year, and they were really getting into sports medicine. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to take care of a baseball team, not the Red Sox. I want to take care of the Reds. And so I did my residency there, and I used to ride my bicycle to Fenway Park to watch the players come in. And there was a guy named Roger Clemens that was a pitcher for the Red Sox, and he was getting his shoulder arthroscoped by some guy named Jim Andrews. And I said, who's he? And I researched him and said, I'm going to finish here. And I'm going to go and spend a year in Alabama and learn how to take care of baseball players from this guy. Because this guy was, an up-and-coming guy in 1989. And I said, that's what I want to do. And after that, I stalked him, spent a year with him. He taught me everything I wanted to learn about baseball. And I said, I want to be him.
That was my next question for you that I had written down here. James Andrews. He's become, certainly in the medical field, the sports medical field especially, a household name. Maybe after Dr. Frank Jobe, he's become the next guy, and then you would be the next guy after that. I think when, if there's such a thing as an arms race, no pun intended, if a pitcher has to have Tommy John surgery, they're talking to you and they're talking to James Andrews. What is it about him or any doctor, Tim, that separates them from the pack, especially when it comes to a procedure like Tommy John?
Well, that's a great question because, when you're in the medical field, you want to think everybody's top notch and everybody can do a great job. I think the difference is in what he taught me. And my father taught me in retrospect a little bit of this too, but what Jim Andrews, who I think is a second father, by the way, he taught me the art of sports medicine. And I say this to my fellows all the time. It's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And you have to respect the player, respect what he's doing, respect why he wants to do it, whatever level that may be. And once you understand that and you've got that connection, then that gives you a step up upon everybody else. I mean, a lot of docs stop playing. If it hurts, don't do it. Just quit. Don't play that sport anymore. Understanding what makes these kids and what makes them tick. And once you do that, you can hone in on some of these procedures that may be a little more difficult for some to do. Then you become good at it. You become their advocate. And you become a player's advocate because deep down, that's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a player. All of us have some competitive athletic approach to life. And so to be part of all this and work and get down the roller coaster with them, I don't care if it's a high school football player, I don't care if it's Tommy John, I don't care if it's a college basketball player. It doesn't matter. As long as you understand and appreciate where they're coming from, you've got a connection with them that most docs don't. Jim Andrews taught me that. He had the most unbelievable approach to people. I mean, he was a Southern guy. I was from training in Boston. I was a Yankee. And he'd come in with these players. How you doing, big man? How y'all doing? And they'd say, we were just in there with this Yankee here. And he goes, he's all right. He's only here for a year. I'm teaching him. We go back up north when we're done.
Yeah, I've had a chance to meet him. He's a piece of work. I don't know him well, but he's a piece of work. When you were in your early 30s, correct me if I'm wrong here, when you became the top medical director of the Cincinnati Reds. How did that happen?
It's funny. When I started practice, I came back up from Birmingham and I started taking care of the Cincinnati Cyclone hockey team. And they had an affiliate in Birmingham, the Birmingham Bulls. But the Cincinnati Cyclone hockey team back then, they were at the Garden. They were selling 11,000 a night. Games are sold out. I mean, it was the ticket in town. And I was able to work and become the doctor for that team. Well, what happened is that what I learned in Birmingham was the approach. I didn't learn this in Boston. Boston was staunch Harvard, white coat. They didn't get it. But in Birmingham, they understood how to take care of athletes. Well, the word got around how I took care of the hockey team. I'd go to practice every now and then, take care of the players. And right about then, the Reds were in this metamorphosis. And Jim Bowden was the general manager. And he called me on the phone and he said, you trained with Jim Andrews and you love baseball. I want to talk to you. And I spent 3 hours in December of 1996, actually, early December. And he asked me what you want to do. And I said, my dream job is to take care of the Cincinnati Reds. I said, I'll come to spring training. I'll come to every game. I'll show you how it's done. He didn't believe me, but he said, you're on. You're hired. And from 1996 until now, that's what I've been doing. So it was an unbelievable interview. And I know Jim's got his fans and people that don't like him very much, but he was very fair to me. But I think what he was trying to do was find a connection to the team. And I'll tell you, the guy that was my biggest advocate back then was Barry Larkin. And Barry Larkin wanted health care for the team. He wanted the players to be taken care of. He wanted them to be prioritized. And I got the job in '96, and we went down to Plant City, Florida. It was my first spring training, the last one for the Reds in Plant City. And I was scared to death. And the first guy that came up to me was the reigning MVP of 1996, was Barry Larkin, in front of the whole group, gave me a big hug and said, I'm glad you're here. That was it.
Walk us through, I've seen it in person. We're going to get to this Tommy John stuff in a few minutes, but walk us through what you and your staff do and how it's evolved certainly over the years. But I mean, now when you're the medical director of a professional sports team and baseball, which has, dozens of minor league teams, you have hundreds of minor league players, you ultimately, at least from a macro standpoint, at the very start of spring training, have to go in there and look at these guys and check them out. So when you get to Goodyear, Arizona now, you and your staff, tell us what that's like hitting the ground running.
Well, first of all, you don't want to hit blind. You've got to get down to spring training and know exactly what you're getting into, what players are coming, what problems they've had, who's going to be valuable to the team and who isn't, who are fillers for the minor leagues. I mean, these are all things that you've got to be able to communicate really months ahead of time, look at their records and find out kind of where they're going to shake out. Then once you've got a list of the top 35 guys, maybe 40, and then you've got your prospects that you'll know that'll be in the minor leagues, but have to be healthy. Then you've got to set up your team to be able to do cursory examinations and then specific examinations on specific body parts. And so it takes a fair amount of time to look, for example, at the pitcher's shoulder, his elbow, get the right questions asked, go back and look at old MRIs, old surgical procedures, surgical notes, where they've been, how much time they've been on the disabled list. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to sit down with the organization and say, this guy is going to last. This guy's not going to pitch 200 innings. This guy's not going to be a reliever. This guy's going to break down. And this is somebody that we're not going to be able to rely on. Or this is the guy we need to develop his arm strength, shut him down if we got him from a trade first half of the year, and he'll be available for us for the second half. So there's a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of questions. It's a lot of stress because, the front office is asking, their jobs depend on them getting the right answers and putting the right players out there to perform with the right program for now and for the future. So it's a lot of work.
You got that job as medical director of the Reds, and you're continuing to build your quote-unquote resume and reputation as a surgeon. Is there one guy, Tim, that puts you kind of on the map of a surgery you did? It could be a pitcher, it could be a position player, I don't know, that all of a sudden by word of mouth or whatever it might be, that all of a sudden let people out there know just beyond Cincinnati or the Cincinnati Reds that if you've got a problem, this is a guy you might want to come see?
The agents are the ones that, the players, but also the agents are the ones that send you a lot of business. And so years ago, the Levinsons, who were with Aces, would send me all of their players. And I go back 25 years with, Detroit Tigers, Oakland A's. I think Barry Larkin, Kevin Mitchell helped Paul, our first baseman was, blanking on his name now, on the World Series team. All these, Brett Boone, these were all guys that I took care of when I first started and were very receptive to my care. But the guy that probably put me on the map nationally was Ken Griffey Jr. And I never forget when Junior came. I was sitting in the OR and I heard that we're going to sign him, and Mr. Linder drove him to the press conference, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be a circus. This guy's going to be untouchable. But Junior Griffey and I bonded from day one, and I'll never forget this, never. So one, he's an icon, obviously, not only in Cincinnati, but across the country. So he's in San Francisco, and he goes to catch a fly ball, and he injures his hamstring. Okay, trainers are calling me, we're rehabbing his hamstring. It's a couple weeks later, I'm driving in my car, and it's Junior calling. And he said, my hamstring's not better, I think I need an MRI. And I said, Junior, we don't MRI hamstrings. We don't do any, we don't operate on them. But I said, you're Junior, we're going to get an MRI. So we get an MRI, and the hamstring is pulled completely off the bone in his hip. It's like, wow, it's completely torn. Well, I have never fixed one of those. And so I looked it up and did my research, and I sent him down with a trainer to the head of sports medicine at the University of North Carolina. And he had done a number of these on the women's soccer players and fixed them. So Junior goes down, and the next day I'm sitting in my office. I get a knock on the door. It's Junior. He goes, the doctor said I need it fixed. When are we doing it? I said, I haven't done it. He goes, I trust you. I want you to do this. That was 48 hours of advanced studying for me. And so I fixed his hamstring. And after that, it was all, he came back and won Comeback Player of the Year the next year. Everybody in the world knew he had it fixed. It was all over the papers back then, all over everything. And so I think if one guy put me on a map, it was Ken Griffey Jr.
Isn't that
yeah.
funny that a hamstring injury and a hamstring repair would be the one that put you on the map? Not, I mean, like I said, you fixed Ken Griffey Jr.'s hamstring, you fixed Tom Brennaman's knee, you fixed Joe Blow's elbow, but you become more known as the years go by as a Tommy John guy. I find it so interesting that it's a hamstring that really puts you on the map.
You know, it is interesting, but nobody wanted to fix that. It was a unique injury in a megastar, a guy who's an all-century player who decided to, amongst anybody in the world to stay with me. And he came back and he did well. And so all of the things that you've learned, the things that Jim Andrews taught me how to do with Tommy Johns, and all of a sudden the players start looking at you differently. And so, oh my gosh, I mean, I get down the list of guys that we started that would, one of my the pride of the hard part about taking care of a professional team, there's a lot of agents and a lot of people that hang around these players. Well, you've got to develop that trust. And if they trust you, the players will want to stay. It's easier. Their families are here. Everything is in town. If they don't trust you, they leave. And sometimes they don't have a choice. The agents push them wherever they want to go. But for a long period of time here, I was the go-to guy, not only for our players, but for a lot of players around the league. And it seems like every year there's more and more and more. And in pitchers, the Tommy John happens to be the buzzword. Everybody wants to learn what it is, how to do it, how do they come back. Now it's the revision Tommy Johns. And so I would see knee injuries, ACLs, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that got the fame and the newspaper articles and the reports were the Tommy John. And then I've done an awful lot of those.
Is there pressure, or do you feel pressure, even now? I'm sure the Ken Griffey Jr. thing, there's no doubt what the answer would be yes. But do you feel pressure when you're operating on a big-time athlete whose career is in the balance, perhaps, depending on his recovery, him or her, from a surgery, and everybody knows you're the guy doing the surgery? Yes,
and it gets worse because the more you're known, orthopedics is a very cutthroat. Everybody wants to do what I do. Not a lot of people want to put in the time and the effort to do what I do. And so you take a lot of pride in it. A lot of things can go wrong. You need an awful lot of people around you to support what you do, whether it be anesthesia, nurses, assistants, people that work in the office. I think it's the more you think about those things, yes, there's a lot of pressure because everybody wants to shoot you down. Everybody wants to see you fail. Everybody wants to see, them jump in front of you. And so that's what motivates me, though. And again, I think when you take care of a sports team, you take care of athletes, it's your athletic, the competitor of you that comes out. You want to be involved with teams that win. You want to be involved, win or lose, with them as part of the team. And you want to be part of the success stories that gets people back out there playing and watch them play. I don't care if it's Clevenger or Bassett or Souza or Nick Senzel or Joey Votto, whoever it is. You watch them, you want to see them succeed because part of you is going through that athletic competition with them. It's your way of playing and competing when you can't do it anymore.
But I know you feel that way because, again, I'm a living example of this. It's not only the surgery itself and the surgery being successful. It also takes then follow-up care and for the individual, whether it's somebody like me or somebody that plays high school soccer or Ken Griffey Jr. The follow-up, and I tell people all the time because I've had surgery on both knees, and I'm not an athlete in any form or fashion. But the follow-up work is what separates, and I'm asking you this as a question, it seems to me that the commitment now becomes on that person because you're going to give them the chance to rehab everything. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're the high school athlete or you're Ken Griffey Jr. At Beacon, you're going to give them a chance to rehab it, but you better show up and you better be committed to it because it seems to me that's just as important as the surgery itself. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And, where a lot of people fail is not understanding that it's not just about me. It's about your team. It's no different. My team here is no different than any other sports team. I mean, Tom Brady doesn't win without his offensive line, his tailbacks, and his receivers. I don't win without my assistants, my physical therapists, my athletic trainers, the people in the OR. And so you have to develop a team of people that understand what it takes to get somebody to that next level. I don't care if you're doing a knee replacement on somebody. You don't treat them like they're old. You treat them like they want to get back to the activity that they want to do. And you have to have that mindset and you have to develop that culture. And the culture that we developed here is for these athletes to get them back on the field to play. I don't care what gender, age, level, sport, it doesn't matter. Whatever they want to do. And once you can develop that culture and have the people around you understand that culture, the immediacy to get an MRI, to understand a diagnosis, to get the treatment, to get the rehab, and then functionally get them safely back on the field, communicating with the coaches, and oftentimes the coaches in college that they're going to go. It's going that extra mile, and it's being a part of their injury, their program, their progress, and their success. And if you can do that, this isn't a job. This is something you do and you just enjoy every day. And I love every second of it. And I think if you understand that, that's what separates some from others in this field. It's not just about doing arthroscopic surgery or Tommy John. It's about understanding and just totally devoting yourself to the people that come in to see you. And sometimes that detracts from your family life. It's some of the other stuff you want to do for fun, but it makes your career awfully, to me, rewarding.
You have taken it upon yourself, or perhaps prodded by all the patients you see, and I mentioned at the outset that the overwhelming majority, probably 90-something%, are the surgeries. You said you did 14 yesterday. Maybe none of them plays professional sports. Young pitchers growing up, teenagers, pitching in knothole, high school pitchers, college pitchers. You've become quite the leader in the way you feel about how these young men and or women, maybe in softball, I don't know, maybe that throwing underneath is not as devastating to the arm as coming from over the top. But you've become a real advocate for trying to educate people on how much these young people should be used or not be used. What's been the reception out there? Because let's face it, I don't care if you're a high school team, a college team, pro team, you're trying to win, and you want your best guys out there.
Yes, and again, I understand that, and I appreciate that. And I think that if I have an audience, it's going to be for the overhead thrower because that's just kind of what I do, the pitching, the throwing, the baseball. But I like to take this to the level of not just baseball, but I'm talking about youth sports in general. One of my big criticisms is how not necessarily competitive, but cutthroat. And I think that for the reasons to just win, we are putting aside some of the safety factors of our youngsters, whether it be young women soccer players, whether it be the types of fields we play on, whether it be baseball players and how types of pitches they throw, how often they throw. We have to be advocates to safely get them to play. And what has turned me off on a lot of these competitive leagues, sports, is the all-out effort to win at the expense of some of these kids' safety. And to the forefront of it comes the Tommy John surgery and throwing breaking balls, for example, kids that are 12 years old. And we've known forever, and this is where it started, we've known forever that the younger you are and how you start to throw curveballs throws a lot of stress on your shoulder and in particular your elbow. And we've seen research, we've watched it, we know that you've got to grip the ball a different way, you've got to learn to throw it the right way, and if you don't, you have a real chance of causing damage to yourself a couple of years down the road. Well, when all that literature started being developed for Little League Baseball, the Little League World Series and Little League Baseball is so political that they threw it away and tried to justify that throwing curveballs cannot be proven to cause injury when you're 12 because of the sensationalism, the TV, ESPN, Little League World Series, and I became then a staunch, I'm going against, I don't care what you guys say, and I took a lot of backlash for that. No different than the same backlash I'm taking now, but I'm talking about field turf. I know field turf causes injury. I know it causes more injury than natural turf, and the NFL wants to sit and they want to deny that. They want to deny that those studies exist, and they do. And it's not just for the NFL. We're talking about now going down to the high school level, the women's soccer levels. We're talking about baseball. So I want to be able to get the word out how we can play these sports safer, how these kids can move on. You asked me, taking care of professional athletes is one thing. The most important thing and the hardest thing I do is take care of these young kids that want to go on to play ball in college and they're playing in high school. My goal is to get them ready so they can go enjoy college. Some of them can't afford college unless they do play a sport. Some of them, that's who they are. That's going to develop them as people. And so the Reds and professional athletes are one thing, but the hardest job I have is these young kids, so I can keep them on the straight and narrow, staying with the right people, doing the right thing that's going to develop them for the rest of their lives. So, yeah, I've taken a lot of criticism. I've been beat up a lot because of this, but I'll stand strong. I don't care. And most of the reception is quite good until it gets down to the bottom line, and the problem are some of the coaches and some of the leagues. The parents have been unbelievable.
There's a very dangerous narrative out there, Tim, with younger players and pitchers about being proactive in regard to having Tommy John. How frequently are you dealing with that? In other words, getting a Tommy John because so many guys are coming back stronger, throwing harder after a Tommy John surgery. So getting it done before you even get hurt.
I've been asked a number of times by coaches, parents. I've been asked by two general managers in professional baseball to do that. One of them was a Dominican player that threw hard, and they knew they were going to blow out his elbow, so let's just fix it. And absolutely 100% of the time is no. And again, one of our jobs is educating. People hurt themselves because of fatigue, technique, many, many reasons. But the reason, and again, guys like me want to sit back and take credit for somebody having a Tommy John and then becoming a National League Player of the Year. It has nothing to do with me. You fix the elbow, but it's the rehabilitative program, the strengthening of the core, the shoulder, the long toss program, the time and effort that's going to make them better, stronger pitchers. And I tell them that all the time. It has nothing to do with what I do. It has everything to do what they do. And most of these young kids have, and you see it all the time. They jump out of their parents' car, they go play. They don't warm up, they don't long toss, they don't do anything. Now all of a sudden they played for 15 years. They've never taken any time off of baseball. We operate on them. They're going to miss 9 to 12 months. And that whole time they're building their body up, their core, their shoulder. So of course they come back and they throw harder. So that's the message we need. We need to educate people. Our goal and my job, as much as it's a surgeon and operating and standing on the sidelines, whatever it might be, is to educate, and mostly to educate the kids, the coaches, and their parents.
walk me through, Tim, where it became in vogue. And I don't know if you're a proponent of this or not. Based on everything you just said, it would be easy to assume which side you would come down on. But look, you and I are old enough to remember, and I was broadcasting not all that long ago, where guys like Greg Maddux and Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson and Roger Clemens, and I could go on and on and on. You'd have 25 or 30 guys in each league that are throwing 250 innings. If their teams make it to the postseason, they're throwing 300 innings. You're lucky to find 2 or 3 guys in each league now that even get to 200 innings in a season. What prompted this? I'm going to call it babying. Maybe you want to yell and scream at me for using that word. Where did we start babying pitchers? And I used the Kevin Cash thing from the World Series a couple of years ago. You got a dominant starter. You're playing in the World Series. This is Major League Baseball, man. This isn't some high school regional game. And you're taking a guy out of a game because he's got 100 pitches? Where did that all start?
A lot. First of all, number one, we do know that injury comes from fatigue. And when you talk about injuries in baseball players, you talk about stressful innings and non-stressful innings. And that's why closers break down, I think, a lot faster than starters and middle relievers. But it all started, I mean, if you go back to when I was telling you about the 60s, you talk about the 69 Mets, they had 4 pitchers. All these guys had four pitching rotations. The problem came with the agents, the money, and the longevity of these players and how in their minds they can protect their arms. I think a lot of these guys, and Jack McKeon taught me this many years ago, are not throwing enough. And if they are, they're not thrown properly enough. We know that long tossing and building your arm strength can help you, stay pitching longer. But I think a lot of this are the people that are surrounding these players. The money is big, the TV money is big, and in their minds they're trying to do and save their commodity by limiting the amount they pitch. And sometimes I think they hurt the players. And there's a lot of players, or some I should say, that feel that going back to a 4-man rotation in baseball is a better thing. That they throw every 4th day, they're going to do better. And we've watched the Jim Maloney's grow up, throw 200 pitches in a game, pitch forever. We watched Nolan Ryan forever. Jerry Kuzman. I can go through like you can, the entire list of guys that were throwing 200 innings and not even thinking about it. And now we've got it's like prize fighters. You got everybody standing in the way trying to protect their players so they can play longer and make more money. And it's all about money. That's what it is. And I think
we see a shift in that coming where I know there was some talk when Nolan Ryan got back involved with the Rangers that they were going to start to do this kind of thing. But I mean, I was doing some work in the Pioneer League this year. And I mean, there are guys down there. Now, they're not affiliated teams anymore, but there are guys down there throwing 115, 120, 125 pitches in a game. And you sit there and you say to yourself, I wonder if that would happen if these were still affiliated players with affiliated teams. The answer is, of course not. Do you think that we will start to see a shift, or are we seeing a shift to getting guys throwing more pitches in games or innings in a season?
I think in general, yes, but I think that, again, and I've watched this happen over the last 25 years, there's too much interference in professional baseball. Too many people that are calling the shots. The agents are calling the shots. It's just the way it is. Where the players go, how much they play. And don't get me wrong, I have tremendous relationships with many of these agents and that are doing things for the right reasons. But their job is to protect their players and get them to play as long as they can. And so they jump in on all sorts of things. And the team has to listen because they're afraid that they'll lose the player. There's just too many outs for these players. So I don't think that's going to happen at the major league level, and I think it's a shame. But there are a ton, and I am one of them. I think that the players and the pitchers, they ought to throw more. They ought to throw more effectively and longer. You're right. A pitcher throws 6 innings. They consider themselves a complete game now. You go back 15, 20 years ago, you had to pitch 9 innings to really, wow, that's really something. How many? I'd be curious to know how many guys threw 9 innings in the major leagues this year. Not many.
Before we have a little fun here, I want to ask you this. Why has there been, because you and I both know, you've forgotten more than I know about it, But every time I open a newspaper or read on the internet where a pitcher has a shoulder injury as opposed to an elbow injury, and all of a sudden you go, oh boy, this is going to be rough. Why has there not been as much success? And it's not to say you can't have a successful shoulder surgery and come back and pitch. But why has there not been as much success on the shoulders as there has been on the elbow?
There's just too much involved with the shoulder. You've got to have enough motion in your shoulder to throw hard, but enough stability so it's not unstable. You've got to develop all the musculature around it. There's 22 muscles around the shoulder, and it's extremely difficult. I think one of the biggest problems we've ever, and again, I've lived through this and I've gone through this circle, is the MRI, because too many people are treating it. Everybody gets an MRI. I mean, it's amazing how naive people are in baseball, but they think every time you have an injury, you need an MRI, and they treat an MRI. And you treat an MRI, you're over-treating people. And so when I started, we weren't doing a ton of MRIs on shoulders because we knew there wasn't much we could do surgically to help them, and a lot of these players are coming back. Then all of a sudden, the agents and everybody got involved. They got MRIs, show partial rotator cuff tears, labral tear, whatever it might be, and before you know it, you're operating on them. And then you're operating on them, and the rehab was so... We don't even know if that was the real problem, and these guys would have a hard time coming back. And so now we're to the position where most of the time, unless you absolutely 100% know that this is the problem, this will fix it, you don't operate on a thrower's shoulder. Whereas 20 years ago, we were scoping everything and trying to fix everything. And we've learned that you can't do that now. I mean, the thrower's shoulder is supposed to look like this after so many innings. You can rehab it and come back and play, but don't go jump to operating on it. And that's what experience will tell you. I see these young guys that come out and they start taking care of these professional teams, or they're sending me MRIs, and they say, we're going to fix this guy's rotator cuff. And I look up and say, you're crazy. I mean, this guy's not going to come back. And the last thing you want to do as a surgeon taking care of a team is be the last guy to operate on that player. That's the last thing you want.
All right, let's have a little fun here. I mentioned earlier that somehow, some way, you're down there at Riverfront Coliseum, the old Riverfront Coliseum, when all these rock and rollers are coming into town through the years. I mean, the pictures around your office of the guys that you've been around is just unbelievable. The one that I find most fascinating, and please share the story, is when you had to come down and check out Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and the Rolling Stones one night. What was that like?
First of all, let me tell you, I love the competitiveness. And when I came back to town, you try to find an angle. And so I said, I want to come down to the Coliseum, and I'll take care of all the acts that come down. And nobody was doing that. Nobody wanted to go down, and they didn't. But I thought it was fun. And so I got to meet everybody. This was way before things changed in medicine and HIPAA and all that kind of thing. I was down there 2 hours before concerts. And I was meeting everybody. So I'm operating at the Good Samaritan Hospital. And the Rolling Stones were coming to town for the Voodoo Lounge tour. And they were playing at Riverfront Stadium. Well, granted, most of the time you see these acts and you're seeing somebody who's on the, making a stage, and they break their thumb with a hammer or something. So I'm up there and they said, we need you to come down to the stadium to see somebody with the Rolling Stones tour. And I said, okay. And they said, well, we need an ear, nose, and throat doctor to come with you. And I said, okay. And so I found my buddy, and we drove down. And so we drive down to Riverfront Stadium, and go underneath the bowels, and then all of a sudden, it's all draped out in black, and there's pinball machines, and we go into this little room, and there's this little old guy sitting in the corner. It was Mick Jagger. And I went and sat right next to him, and he's talking to him about his throat. And I'm looking at ENT guy going, this is out of my league. And so he looks at me and goes, go get some hot water and some this and this and this. And I go get it. And we sit in there taking care of Mick Jagger, just talking to him. And Mick Jagger looks at me and he says, would you like to have dinner with us? And I said, are you kidding me? So we go out into a table, and I'm sitting here, Mick Jagger sitting next to me. Then all of a sudden, here comes Keith Richards. The whole band is sitting at this table. For four, there's six of us. All they wanted to know about was ACL injuries in soccer players, and all I wanted to know about was him and David Bowie and all these things I read in the newspaper. Bianca Jagger, he was awesome. He was awesome. And he said, "Can I pay you for this?" And I said, "How about an autograph program. He had all the guys personally sign and autograph, and I still have it. And it was fantastic. I mean, he gave me tickets to sit behind stage to watch the concert, watch these guys during. And, quite honestly, they're just regular guys. I mean, he was just sitting there. He was just a regular guy, wanted to know what I did all day. All I cared about is what he did. And, I got to meet Reba McEntire, Alan Jackson. Ozzy Osbourne told me to F off because I asked him if he's going to bite a bat's head off. I was having dinner one night down, and there's this guy sitting across from me, and he was in a painter's, overalls. And I'm sitting there for 20 minutes having dinner. I finally said, "What do you do?" And he goes, "I play in a band." I said, "Who are you?" He goes, "My name's Eric Clapton." I said, "Oh, nice to meet you."
Did you meet the band Kiss?
Oh yeah. Kiss was down there, and those guys were nuts. I mean, they were absolutely nuts, and they're running around with their moon boots on. But I was just one of the guys. I had been down there when Kiss was down there. I was down there 2 hours before, so I saw them out of makeup. I saw them just hanging out, running around, doing their thing. So I was just part of the gig. So they didn't care what I did, and so that's how you got into. You got to really see what was happening. I remember Fleetwood Mac came when they had renovated the Coliseum, and I got locked in the dressing room with Stevie Nicks, and she went berserk because she couldn't get out. It was locked on the way in, and she had a major meltdown. I mean, the wrestlers that would come were incredible. I'll never forget one of the wrestlers named Ivory was a woman wrestler, cut her eye, and I was down underneath and was going to sew her up, and here comes Ric Flair busting through the door saying, "Wait a second, who are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to sew her up." And he goes, "Let me get my plastic surgeon from Columbia University on the phone." I'm thinking it's 9 o'clock on Thursday night. Good luck. Here comes McMahon's daughter. Finally, I ended up sewing up Ivory, and Ivory said, "What do you need?" She signed a picture to me, and that's the same time when Cold Stone was there. So Cold Stone broke a beer can over his head, split it 12 stitches, and I got a picture of him too. Hell yeah, doc, 15 stitches or whatever. I mean, it's just again, it's about building relationships, and I was just one of the guys. It was fun.
That's cool. Tim, we thank you for your time today. It's always great seeing you. Please tell your bride and all the kids that we said hello, and thanks so much. And thanks so much for your support of high school athletics right here on Chatterbox Sports. You've been a big part of our base and our future, and we thank you for everything.
Well, I appreciate what you do, and again, the guys at Chatterbox have been fantastic, and what you guys are building here around is going to be replicated around the country. And it just shows how important and how exciting and how, high school sports is a big part of our communities, all of our communities. And here, high school football, soccer, and it's just fun to be part of it. And I'm glad that I'm able to do so, and I'm glad that you guys include us in those things. So thanks for having me. This is great.
All righty. Dr. Timothy Kremchek. Have a great day, young man. Great to have him. Boy, that's some interesting stuff on there, man. Interesting stuff. And he's on his game and has been for a long, long time. Back with more on Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers right after this.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
And you look this up in a medical book, he's got FSB.
FS what?
FSB. It's short for fatal sperm backup.
Oh, my God.
Tom, see, the married men know what I'm talking about. I didn't have this until I got married, but I've got the affliction a little bit at times. And Tom, do you ever suffer now that you don't have that job with Fox and you're not bringing home the big?
Boy, Tracy knows how to hit a guy. I mean, how do you hit a guy with that kind of line, right? No longer have your job at Fox, big bucks. Something not right about that. All right, there is something right about the college football playoff rankings. And we're going to be talking a lot about this because we're down to the final 3 Saturdays of the regular season. Teams play 12 regular season games now, and virtually every conference has a conference championship team. So you're going to play 13 games before you get to a college football playoff. So we have 3 more weeks. Technically 2 more weeks of the regular season, 3 more weeks of the regular season while they're release the rankings. Then you'll have that following Saturday of conference championship games. And after those are over, you get the big show on a Sunday instead of a Tuesday to tell you what 4 teams will play in the college football playoff. 2026 is when we go to 12 teams. And there's some very interesting articles that are written out there today. And the one I talk about all the time, I'm paying for it just like you would pay for it. So I'm not on any kind of retainer with these guys. But if you love sports and it's a couple bucks, $3 what it is a month, I think it is, The Athletic.
Yeah, I subscribe to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what they did. If you haven't heard of it, it's theathletic.com. And again, I'm not indebted to anybody here. But if you love sports, what they basically did was, they went out and tried to hire some of the top sports writers in the country from cities everywhere. Young guys, older guys, columnists, whatever it might be. They have no limitations on space. They have no deadline. So if there's a game that ends at 11:30 at night and the reporter who covered the game for Ohio State wants to write, a 40-paragraph column on the game, the good, bad, and indifferent, they're able to do it. And so you really get very, very in-depth coverage at both the college, the pro level, nationally, locally, internationally. They've got it all. And the point I'm making is that, they do the what-if game. So what if we had 12 teams now? So you got these rankings up here, right?
We do. Yes.
Okay, so let's just start with the top 4. Casey, Paul, do either one of you have any problem with the top 4, whether it be the 4 that are in there, somebody that's not, or the order of the top 4?
I personally right now don't have a problem with it just because Michigan and Ohio State are going to play each other, and one of those is going to be out eventually. I like where TCU is at. I think that's fair. They have not lost a game. I'm looking forward to them playing Texas. I think that will determine whether or not they continue to stay in the college football playoffs. I think no matter what, they stay at 4, regardless of what happens. from here on out. The only way that they move up is if I would say like Oregon and Tennessee lose. I think Oregon or Tennessee will probably take the third spot when it comes down, when everything comes to a close in the end. What are your thoughts, Paul?
I do tend to agree with that only because if Georgia stays number 1, I don't think they would want to do the SEC rematch right away in the first round. They'd probably want that for the title game. So I do agree that TCU at 4 is probably the right spot. I like this top 4. I was a little nervous that Tennessee was going to stay in there at number 4 just because you had number 3 beating number 1. You had 2 ranked teams in the top 4 playing each other, and the number 1 team loses. I thought maybe they would just drop to 4. I like the top 4. I think that's right. I think it's the right order. I don't think there's any real objection to it.
What happens in the next 3 weeks, especially when you start getting into one-loss teams, because let's face it, as you look at it, I'm going to keep that up for a minute, okay? Because we know that, barring some disaster, Georgia will be undefeated going into the SEC championship game. So the way it stands right now, if LSU were to win out, LSU would play with 2 losses. LSU would play Georgia in the SEC championship game. I mentioned earlier, there has never been, since the advent of the college football playoff in 2014, when Ohio State won the whole thing, the first one, there's never been a 2-loss team in the college football playoff. But if LSU were to beat Alabama, which they already have, Ole Miss, which they already have. These are top 10 teams now, top 11 teams, Ole Miss 11. And then beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. You talk about unmitigated chaos. I mean, the way this thing steps up, let's put the rankings back up there again. Yep. Because, that's one scenario, okay? You mentioned Casey, Tennessee. They've only lost 1. What if they went out? Yeah, they'd win out, but they wouldn't play in the conference championship game. But they would have 1 loss. The Oregon SC thing is going to play itself out because Oregon and SC each with 1 loss. One of those 2 teams, maybe UCLA, but one of those teams is going to win the Pac-12 championship and more than likely walks in there. Now they're at 1 loss.
Yeah.
What if TCU loses a game? They're at 1 loss. But let's say they go on and win the Big 12 championship game. They'd roll in 12-1. Ohio State and Michigan. They play each other in 3 weeks. One of them will win, one will not. But the one that does not win has 1 loss. Now, most people feel like Ohio State would have a better chance with 1 loss to get into the college football playoff than Michigan because of the schedule. Now, that's what most people think. I'm not so sure I'm buying into that because I don't think either one of their schedules was particularly good. But Ohio State continues to look better and better as Notre Dame continues to win games. Because Notre Dame's now ranked 20th. So, and let's face it, and they also have beaten Penn State. Penn State is the only decent win that Michigan has because their out-of-conference schedule might have been the worst out-of-conference schedule in the country. If Michigan loses a game, they are done. D-U-N, done. They will not be in the playoff. But, fellas, if you have, let's say, Georgia and Ohio State, let's say they go undefeated, okay? If you then have Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, Oregon, all with 1 loss, which 2 are in, which 2 are out?
Say that again.
Okay, let's say the top 2 stay unbeaten. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That means Michigan will have lost to Ohio State.
Yeah.
TCU, if they lost to Texas this weekend, Texas is ranked 18th.
1 loss, TCU is out. 1 loss, TCU is out.
For sure.
For sure. 1 loss, TCU is out. TCU has to be undefeated.
All right, hold on a minute now. Hold on before let's stop there a second. Okay. If Michigan loses to Ohio State, the only team they beat in that top 25 all year long was Penn State. Put that list back up there again. Okay? Now, what if TCU beats Texas? Okay? Who's ranked 18th? That means this year, on that list we're looking at right now, they will have beaten Texas. They will have beaten Kansas State. They will have beaten Kansas, who's just outside this 25. They would have beaten Oklahoma State, who was in it most of the year. All of those wins against teams with winning records, 3 or few losses for each of those teams. And you're telling me that if TCU loses one game, that they would for sure drop out, and Michigan with one loss would not drop out for sure?
Oregon would. Oregon would be in if they
went out.
If they went out.
Okay.
A one-loss Oregon and a one-loss TCU, they're going to give it to Oregon.
Okay, what about – okay.
I think I'm with you on your point. I'm just sort of putting myself in the mind of the committee.
What about Tennessee? They went out, but they don't play in the SEC championship game. TCU loses a game but wins the Big 12 championship game. So each of them would be – TCU would technically be 12-1. Tennessee would be 11-1 because they're not going to play in a conference championship game.
Well, who does TCU lose to, though? Are you saying if they lose this weekend to Texas? Because if they lose –
I'm just saying if they lose a game but then they come back and win the Big 12 conference championship.
I mean, if TCU loses to, like, Iowa State in their last game, I think they can only afford to lose to Texas and even have a shot. They can't lose to Baylor. They can't lose to Iowa State and still have a shot. I really think TCU, just the way that this is setting up, has to end up undefeated, but maybe a one loss to Texas in a Big 12 championship. But I still think TCU has to end undefeated because I think that they're going to give a Pac-12 champion Oregon. That's just the way it's setting up. Tennessee, maybe, but I think they want to give a Pac-12 champion a shot here. And then LSU, too, a 2-loss LSU team. If you're looking at Vegas right now, you can bet on who's going to make the playoffs. And Tennessee has the third best odds at -240. Third best odds.
Well, who does Georgia play the rest of this year? Pull up their schedule. Who are they playing the rest of this year?
They
Georgia,
play Kentucky.
Yeah.
What?
They play Kentucky.
Who's ranked 24th?
Georgia Tech and Mississippi State. They don't have a very tough schedule the rest of the way.
Okay, so they play one ranked team, and they play a mediocre team in Mississippi State, and then they play a way below average team in Georgia Tech.
I will put it this way, too. From Vegas' side, and this goes back to where I say I'm just kind of putting my mind in the my head in the mind of the committee. Clemson and LSU and USC and Oregon and UCLA, all of those teams I just mentioned have better odds to make the playoffs than TCU.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that I think TCU, the way that that's shaping up with the odds and everything else, I think that's trying to tell you that a one-loss TCU isn't going to make it, even though with all those ranked wins.
Well, look, as you look at that list, I mean, to me, that makes logical sense, even though I want TCU to get in there.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, Oregon has already bludgeoned UCLA. They've already killed them. Okay? You have 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 12. Okay? So USC, Oregon, UCLA all sit at one loss. You're going to have to beat to be the Big 12 champ. You're going to have 2 of those teams. We know UCLA and USC will play one another the final game of the regular season. So that'll take care of that. Okay? Then you have what's going to be the Pac-12 championship game, which could involve the winner of UCLA-USC getting another crack at Oregon. So I can understand why a Pac-12 champ, based on who you'd have to play and beat, would have a better chance than the Big 12 champ. That I understand. I just think when you start looking at Tennessee, the potential of LSU, these Pac-12 teams, and then, of course, the loser of the Michigan-Ohio State game, and the chaos that would be created if LSU were to beat Georgia would be insanity. Because wouldn't they have to go?
A 2-loss LSU team that has beaten Alabama and beaten Georgia
has to go.
They got to be
no brainer.
They got to be.
They got to go. They got to go. SEC's the best conference, without a doubt. And I think some of the teams in the SEC are overrated every single year. I mean, I get so tired of reading about Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And, it gets tiresome because these teams are really not very good at the end of the day. But top to bottom, solid conference. Top to bottom, I think Big 12 is better this year. Not the heavyweights, but the middle and the bottom tier. Casey.
I just happened to take a look at both USC and Oregon's schedule.
Yep.
And there's going to be a Pac-12 team in the championship. Or there's going to be a Pac-12 team in the playoffs unless Oregon loses to Utah, which is that
could happen.
That's a big possibility. Or USC loses to UCLA,
which could happen.
Now, if either one of those teams win out and they make it to the championship and they win their championship,
they're in.
They're in for sure because they play USC plays UCLA, which is 9, and they play Notre Dame, which is 20. We already talked about how Notre Dame has been slowly.
Where is that Notre Dame game?
It's at USC.
Yeah, I thought so. So they got some tough games, USC.
Yeah, and again, Oregon, they're right there. They play Washington, which is ranked 24th this week. They play Utah after that, and then they play Oregon State, which, that's
not
probably
an easy schedule.
That's not easy.
Not an easy schedule at all. Washington on any given day. They got the Penix Jr. kid, the former Indiana quarterback, who's out there having a good year. They're ranked 25th in the current poll, so that's not a layup.
Yeah, so after looking at this one more time, I'm just going to put it up. I think if Oregon or USC win out, they're in. They're in the football play. They're in the playoffs if they win out, for sure. There's not a scenario to me where if Tennessee wins out and Oregon wins out that Tennessee's in and Oregon's out, just based off of the schedule that they're about to play. TCU to me, they cannot afford to lose any games at all, which is unfortunate because. This is if they lose against Texas, which is a really good team, they're pretty much out. And I think Texas, to me, they kind of got screwed by having an injury early on against Alabama.
Yeah.
I think they'd be right in the middle of this conversation that we're having, honestly.
I don't know. I think they're soft, but that's my opinion.
Texas.
I think they're soft.
Texas.
I think they're soft. They have been soft for a long, long time. They're soft.
Not back?
Not back yet?
They have a chance to get back. Got the Manning kid coming in next year, but I think this is going to be one of the most fascinating stories to watch in football because of the transfer portal and all this kind of stuff. If Quinn Ewers gets on some kind of a run here, and that's the guy you were talking about, the quarterback, transfer from Ohio State, right, who started against Alabama, first game of the year, just shreds the Crimson Tide in the first quarter, then gets hurt, misses the next number of weeks. They lose a game. He had a terrible game against Oklahoma State. Right after he came back, they lost that game. They played a little better lately, but he is a more than capable quarterback. But if all of a sudden he ends the season on a big-time run, you're going to hand that job to Manning next year, and Ewers would only be a sophomore from an eligibility standpoint, be a junior from a pro standpoint. It's going to be interesting to watch. There's some good games this weekend. Who did you say that SC and SC, UCLA, and Oregon played this weekend?
So USC plays Colorado.
That's a blowout.
This week. And then they play the following week UCLA.
Okay.
And then they play Notre Dame to finish out their schedule.
Okay.
Oregon, they play Washington.
This week. Where's that game?
It is in Oregon.
Okay. They'll win.
Yeah, and then they play Utah, which is also at Oregon. So they, to me, have the most likely chance to get in. And then USC, man, they're playing UCLA and then Notre Dame. That's tough to me. That's tougher than what Oregon's about to do. So I don't know. I really do think, though, a Pac-12 team's getting in.
I think it all depends on how it shakes. Yeah, you're right. If they win out.
Yeah.
If one of those three wins out, there's no doubt they're going to get in. And I can promise you that the powers that be in college football would love to see that be the Trojans because they are the brand, right? Oregon's run by Nike, but USC is the brand. They say it doesn't matter. These are human beings that sit around and talk about this stuff, and they're looking for big cash when that college football playoff goes to 12 teams. Huge cash. You just heard Timothy Kremchek say a little while ago, don't believe for a second. We all know the old adage about money talks and BS walks. Cash. It's having a lot to say in the world of athletics these days. I just can't believe Ohio University's not on that list after a drubbing of Miami last night. Okay, what's our cherry on top presented by United Dairy Farmers today, fellas? Do we have one?
We do, and this is a great story. You may remember Domata Peko, the Bengals player from a few years ago.
Yeah. Good dude.
His father-in-law sold the winning $2 billion Powerball ticket.
You know what? I just heard this guy interviewed on the radio driving in this morning.
Yeah, he owns the store where the ticket was bought in California, and he'll get a $1 million cut of that.
And they asked him the question, what are you going to do with the $1 million? He says, I have 11 grandchildren. He says, and I'm spreading that money out to 11 grandchildren.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great story.
The winner of that, by the way, was you see it up there, $2 billion. They have IRS agents banging on their door. And you know what? One of the silliest things in the world I heard about this story today. And explain to me the benefit of this. And maybe there is one. It is mandated by law in California that the person who won that Powerball, $2 billion, their name has to be made public.
Yeah, that's not in every state. Every state has its own lottery law as to whether you have to come forward or stay anonymous. Ohio, you can stay anonymous. You're trying to win it in Ohio.
What?
I don't know. Maybe it's transparency.
Transparency for what?
I don't know.
I mean, the IRS know who the guy is. That's all the government cares about. They just want the cash.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Good Lord. And in California, by the way, before we leave, they voted down because the Indian reservation tribes, right, threw all of their money, despite the fact that they could have been helped by sports betting, right?
Yep.
They threw all the money behind fighting the DraftKings and the FanDuels of the world, being able to use an app to sports gamble in California. So in other words, you can walk down the street in San Francisco, you can walk down the street in L.A., and it's cool to shoot heroin. It's cool to crap on the street. But you can't have sports gambling.
Yeah,
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, both the propositions got shot down yesterday, and honestly, they never even stood a chance. I think they only got 15%.
Think about that for a second. They are giving away needles to shoot heroin in California, and you cannot make a sports wager on your phone in California. What in the hell is going on?
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Gentlemen, we shift gears and lighten the mood a little bit. Am I right or wrong on that? Box lunchtime coming up. I mean, can you please explain that to me? Anybody that's been to California lately, you literally can go out for a morning jog and go in 7 different directions through some of the nicest neighborhoods in the world. And my heart bleeds for these people. I'm not some guy that's all of a sudden thinking I'm better or looking down. People have problems. I get it. But you can run in any direction and find somebody handing out needles to shoot heroin in California right on the street where your kid gets off the bus. And you can't sports gamble in California?
Did you say you could crap on the street?
You can't. They do. They don't do anything about it. Of course they do. It's everywhere. I literally, the last time I was in San Francisco, I got up in the morning. I tell this story all the time. I got up in the morning to go take a run. And I'm going down Market Street in downtown San Francisco at like 6:30 in the morning because I woke up early with a time difference and all that stuff. I'm literally dodging piles of human feces and used needles trying to get to the Embarcadero just to get out of the chaos. That is a true story.
That's freedom.
Let freedom reign,
you can't,
all right, okay,
you can't do
use
that in
that
Hamilton.
argument, that's fine. But what about the freedom of being able to gamble on a college football game on your phone?
Yeah, that
seems like a double standard to me.
It's ridiculous.
It's insanity.
I need to stop gambling against your Ohio Bobcats.
Please don't tell me you bet against them.
I bet against them.
Why in the world would you do that? Seriously.
Well, love and
They're
honor.
the best team in the conference.
The cradle of coaches, Tom.
You got to have players.
Coach.
You got to have. I like that coach at Miami. I think they've got some nice pieces there. They got some nice defenders. He's brought in some transfer guys. I watched that game last night. But OU, and I don't say it because OU is good.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a big, rugged, physical, tough offensive line. They got the best player in the conference in the quarterback, 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. They ran for 200. They're averaging like 40-something a game. They've won 5 in a row. They're good.
I've been to 4 different home football fields in the MAC, and no one does it better than OU.
There's no doubt.
No one does it better.
Well, I mean, look, I argue all the time, and again, not because I'm an OU guy, but I take the kid, and I don't know if he has family ties there. I don't know who recruited him or didn't recruit him, and OU's probably to blame for this. Mm-hmm. But how in the world that C.J. Hester kid from Wyoming, okay, he's going to be the Mr. Football for a second year in a row, Division 4, whatever it is.
Yeah.
How in the world that guy is playing at any other MAC school besides Ohio University is beyond me. They have the best facilities. They have the best stadium. I ran into a guy the other night who played college baseball. He was telling me the greatest stop by far every year was that baseball field at Ohio University. Their gym is incredible. I don't understand how every kid out of this Cincinnati area that may not be able to play for Ohio State or Notre Dame or whoever, I don't understand how in the world they're not playing in Athens.
Athens is a great place.
Great place.
You mentioned the baseball field. 2 best baseball players to ever play at that baseball field, Mike Schmidt and Trace Fowler, who played for the Southern Ohio Copperheads in the summer, the Cheds. Trace was a ball player. Do you know that?
I know he was.
I was in Athens in the summer for quite some time, and they gave us 2 things I remember about Athens. One was
weed.
3 things I remember.
You can't crap in the street in Athens.
No, you cannot.
No, you cannot.
No.
One is they serve beer. They serve beer at the games.
Yeah, that's great.
Which made for fun atmosphere at times.
Right.
The second thing is that they gave us a Wendy's card. We got like $5 or $6 free on it every day. Now this was back before inflation, so you got a lot of food for $5.
Yeah, burger was 99 cents or something.
Right, it was like, you could get a $1 menu items.
Yeah.
We were joking the other day about how we're going to have to tell our kids about how there used to be a $1 menu. You could actually go somewhere and get things for $1. That's beside the point. The last thing was, and this is the thing that probably is most ingrained in my memory, is I would go fishing from time to time at some state park.
Yes,
and
Stroud State Park.
Perhaps that was it.
Yeah.
And there was one night where I just kind of got lost in time, and the next thing you know, I looked around and it was pitch black outside. And I, honest to this day, don't know if I've ever been more scared for my life. It was just like this weird thing, like, I probably need to get the hell out of here. And I picked up my tackle box, and I sprinted as fast as I could to my car for about probably a half of a mile. And I don't know what, but it just
you could have stayed out there for months in Athens.
Probably.
And nobody would have bothered you.
But something, there was just a weird aroma that came around me, like, why in the hell am I still out here?
It gets dark there.
There was no lights anywhere.
No.
It was about as dark as it could possibly be.
So what's on the show today, boys? What do we got going on?
Well, we liked your conversation with Kremchek. Reed's been on this banter or warpath. I'm not sure what the correct term would be.
Warpath.
Warpath's probably the stronger, more appropriate term, about youth sports and kids throwing curveballs.
Yep.
So we'll have a small conversation about that. But I think, for the most part, I don't have too many things that you said today that I have a problem with. I think the college football playoff situation, we'll talk about that later, it is cut and dry. This year, I think it's pretty cut and dry.
I had to field a lot of questions, Tom, about what it was like working. I went to career day today at my alma mater, Baden High School.
Very nice. Who you used to pick against all the time last year in game day show.
They were booing me the second I walked in.
I
They
know
said,
that.
Here comes this son of a gun, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But a lot of questions like, how's it working with Tom? It's just like, he's great. It's great. There were a lot of questions about you. I had to field a lot.
I'm sure.
We have some important business here to take care of before we get the box lunch started. We're gonna pick Casey's college basketball fandom live. We're gonna do it live with the wheel.
The wheel?
Okay.
The wheel. We're gonna
wheel
leave
we
it.
trust.
How are we doing this? I never was told.
So we took out the Pac-12. We don't want to make Casey stay up too late at night.
Sure.
We gave him the 5 other major conferences, and we took out the Blue Bloods.
This is for who he's going to root for in
Yes,
basketball.
yes. This is his college basketball fandom.
right.
We took out the local teams, right?
Yep.
And we took out the Blue Bloods except for North Carolina because he wanted to potentially leave North Carolina in there for Marty.
Okay.
Is this reverse raffle or?
Yes. So we're gonna spin the wheel, and then as
I like this.
as it comes out, we're going to remove a conference, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll paste in the teams. All right, spin the wheel, Casey.
Tom, this is how we choose lunch every day.
Yeah,
This
I like
wheel,
this.
This wheel right here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, he's going
Oh,
to the
no.
Big East.
Big East is
Or wait,
no.
Big East is out then.
Well, Xavier was already out.
What's the Big Ten?
Oh, Big Ten. Big East is still in. All right, remove it. Remove it.
You can't take the Buckeyes, Casey.
Uh-oh.
You didn't want to anyways.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
Oh, God. There we go.
All right.
There we go.
Spin it
Up
again.
and spinning.
Big East is out.
There we go.
There we go.
TCU's looking better and better, Case.
I can't wait for this.
I couldn't deal if he was a Villanova
This poor
fan.
kid's gonna have to root for like South Carolina.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
how terrible would that be?
All right. Ready?
Get the Big 12. Get Huggy. Get Huggy.
He could.
Yeah.
He could.
All right, here we
He
go.
Here we
comes
go.
to Centos this year, and he'll be going
He
to
does.
Fifth Third
That's
going
right.
forward.
He's coming on the big interview soon.
Uh-oh. Big 12.
Bye-bye,
See you,
Huggy.
Huggy.
Oh.
man.
Bye-bye,
Get
Kansas.
a lot-
Bye-bye, TCU.
This is getting bad. For
This
me.
is going to
Casey
If
being
it's
a
the
Mis-
SEC,
He's gonna be
Missouri.
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 how about Kentucky?
He could be a Kentucky.
Well,
No,
no
Kentucky's
Blue
out.
Bloods.
No Blue
No,
Bloods.
wait a second. Hold on.
does he get to at least
Oh,
pick
you're
the
right.
team?
Kentucky's out. So does he get, if we're down to these final two, does that mean he whichever one is left, does he get to pick the school inside of that conference?
We were going to spin the wheel for the
Yeah,
we
we're
got to
gonna
spin
spin
it
the
again.
wheel.
We got to do
Wow,
another.
okay.
We got to do
I think
another
we should
round.
have sent him
Man.
on campus visits. I mean, he's a top recruit. Casey is. We should have sent him to Fifth Third Arena,
should be wanting
Centos
me.
Center.
Well, I was thinking, and I'll leave this open for you guys. I was thinking we have Casey send like a DM or like a video to every school in the conference that wins and says like, "Why should I be a fan of your team?" And then we just see what schools respond.
Well, half of them might not have any answer.
All right, go.
All right, here we go.
Now we are
Especially in the SEC.
This is it right
It-
here.
Basketball
whatever it
conference
lands.
is brutal.
We're
Go
not
ahead.
landing. We're picking the school or the conference that it lands on. We're not
Carolina.
Here on.
Carolina.
All right.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
we want ACC, right?
Probably
Yeah,
want
for sure.
Probably want an ACC.
It is.
Oh,
Very
ACC.
nice.
All right, start going on in here. All right, we got to put the ACC in here and pick your team.
All right.
Well, that's a good conference to get.
This is a good conference. At least you
Yeah.
get to see some decent basketball, Casey.
That's right, Casey. And like we talked about, you're almost
Ooh,
guaranteed that
Syracuse?
every team in a conference is going to be on television, even though you said you had ESPN Plus, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you could watch them anyway.
Yeah.
Wait, you know what? You know what we should do? None of these teams play till Friday, and instead of typing this in, let's just leave it for Friday's box lunch.
Fair.
Let's just leave it for Friday instead of going through and typing 15 names in
ACC.
here.
And you can start sending emails to Jim Boeheim,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
That's right. They'll probably
Hubert Davis,
Yeah.
all the guys in the ACC.
Almost everybody plays Friday, so we'll do it Friday.
Okay.
Is there any team in the ACC before Tom goes that's Tom? Would you say there's anyone that are truly bad in the ACC? Like you would
Yeah,
have.
there's some teams. I mean, although I keep forgetting, who's good every year. I love the coach.
Virginia
Virginia's top 15, I think, this year. Miami of Florida's turned
Yeah,
into a really
there's
good
not
program.
bad.
Right?
Maryland's not a terrible team usually. Maryland.
Big
Well, they're in
10.
the Big Ten
Big
now.
10.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. They're old
Yeah, it's hard to
ACC.
get used to. You're right.
I'll leave.
Who else?
Had a
Wait,
decade.
Duke is always good.
I've had long
obviously.
enough to remember that.
You know, Duke is always good.
Duke.
Yeah,
NC State,
Georgia Tech's pretty bad.
yeah, and Virginia Tech.
And there's sometimes there's serviceable.
They're
Not,
okay.
not
bad.
Not a big basement, or not a low
No.
basement. In
You got
the
Wake
ACC.
Forest.
I
used
mean,
to be
Virginia
good,
Tech
not so
did
much.
win the ACC tournament last year.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right. You'll catch them on a year.
Yeah, yeah.
And Syracuse,
I like
Boy.
those schools.
Boston
For
College. How they
basketball,
looking?
at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
Syracuse.
That's a
Is
basement.
Syracuse on like this? Are they in a situation where you obviously can't let go of the man, and we all know who that man is, but it's like at some point it hasn't been good for a while, right?
Yeah.
Well, he had his kids around there the last couple of years, so you're not going to fire the guy when his
Sure.
kids are playing.
Yeah. How
Hey,
old
well,
is
you
Jim?
can't really.
I
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Fire
you're
is a
right,
strong
you're right.
word,
That's a
right?
wrong
You got to
word.
ask him
Yeah.
to let him. Like, hey, coach.
I don't know, though. You got to replace him with somebody.
77.
I think Syracuse is a big enough job where you can get somebody that's.
So Jim
That
Boeheim.
venue's tired.
Jim Boeheim's 77, and he just his final son just graduated, right? He was
Yeah.
22. I mean, Tom, can you imagine having a 5-year-old kid right now?
Yes. I'd be training him up. Train him up. Coach him up.
Champion.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
I keep telling my wife all the
City
time, let's go
championship.
out and adopt like 5 kids.
A center.
I tell her that
point
every
guard.
day. We're a year away, we're months away from being empty nesters. I've been telling her for years. I said,
Really?
come on. I said, let's go get 2 or 3 more and do this whole thing all over again.
Really? You're that guy.
Absolutely.
See, my wife
Do you
wants
wish you would've
another
had
kid.
more
Coach
than
him
that?
up. Coach him up.
Do you wish
No
you would've had
participation trophies. Coach him up.
more? Do you wish because you have 2, right?
Yes.
Do you wish you would have had a couple more back when the
No,
two-
not when you're
Okay.
going through, because you're kind of figuring it all out. Not that we haven't figured it out by any means now, but I mean, I think once you guys will find out, your years are young. Now I think you would, I think it'd be fun to do it again. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Well, if
Be
you're
fun.
going to do it, I think you should go to California and save a few.
Oh yeah.
For your
Yeah. It was what we talked about yesterday when I was winning all those championships in basketball. Now they don't even want me near the gym.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no participation trophies.
Well, if you have kids in California, you don't even have to train them to use a toilet. You train them like a dog. You can go outside. Just
Exactly
ring the
right.
bell,
Crap in
open
the
up the
street.
door, and
Crap
just
in the
go
street.
outside. Right,
Yep,
yeah.
that's exactly right. It's what we do around our house. Luke and I just go out and take a leak right outside the door. That's actually true. All right, fellas, have a good one. Adios.
Thank you, Tom.
See you, Tom.
All right, Reed. You once again made most of these topics, which is fair. But there's a few of them on here that are fun.
Right.
I don't know why I keep getting called the Boogeyman. I know that was a nickname that was given to me. That's on the list. That's
Grim
fun.
Reaper.
Zim
Zim
is terrified. We'll get to
Yeah.
Grim.
I don't know how much of that is a shtick versus how much he actually believes that, but we'll leave that to be for a later time.
He imagines you with a scythe and a whole 9 yards. Hey, we got a new camera angle here. It looks
Yeah,
good.
we do.
Yeah. So let's go into, he talked to Dr. Kremchek. Funny story about Dr. Kremchek. We've had him on the game day show that we do, the high school pregame show, a few times now. And for one reason or another, we just assumed wrongly that he was a Moeller graduate.
Yes,
Because of everything he does with Moeller. And I think we
Right.
even brought up on the show Ty or somebody like that. We didn't know, like, hey, you're a Moeller grad, because we told him, because we just, for some
As a
reason.
part of trivia, we had him name the Moeller grad, and we put his little picture up on the screen. We were wrong.
Yeah, he's from Indian Hill. And it's become, we made a joke out of it, right? We
Sure.
we
It was a
brought
little
it
bit of
up.
a bit.
So, but yeah, Dr. Kremchek, obviously it does the Tommy John surgeries in this area. And this is something, here in Hamilton, we've got a very great youth sports program in baseball. I mean, go to Little League World Series multiple times. They're runners-up just 2 years ago. Brandon Sejos actually was on that train. He's a big Hamilton West Side fan. But there's this thing in youth sports, and the more that these kids are playing and playing and playing, they're playing games. I mean, my cousin's 10 years old, and he practices year-round baseball, year-round. They get so burnt out, and this isn't even the physical ailments of playing year-round. This is the mental side of it. When you're playing year-round, you get tired of it. You're a kid. And these parents, when I talk to parents that have these young kids, they say they want to do this. A lot of the times it's not just the parents pushing it. I think that might be a little inflated. I think there's kids certainly parents pushing them. But a lot of the time the kids want to just keep playing baseball. Yeah, who has more fun than playing baseball? I want to play basketball year-round. I want to go to AAU tournaments. But at some point, you got to step in as a parent and say, listen, you don't need to play year-round. It's not healthy for you. You're going to get burnt out. Do other things. Be a kid. Learn other things. But in terms of the physical, I watched a Little League World Series game a few years ago, and the visiting team scored 6 runs in the top of the first inning. They're up 6-0. And I turned into the bottom half of the first inning, and I saw 7 consecutive curveballs thrown. 7 consecutive curveballs. And these kids so often don't even make it to high school as a pitcher. They were elite at their sport when they're 12 years old, and by the time they're 15, their arm is shredded. They've had surgery. They've broken their elbow from throwing so many curveballs. You don't need to throw a curveball. You don't need to develop it to throw it half of the time until you're in high school. Your body isn't ready for it, but these coaches are so wound up in winning 12-year-old baseball games that they don't care about the physical limitations and the physical ailments that they're putting on these kids, and it is an absolute travesty. I've made the joke that some of these coaches that are coaching these 12-year-old kids and that have ruined their careers by trying to win baseball games when they're 12 and they get Tommy John surgery. These guys, I don't know what law they're breaking, but they should be thrown in jail. Seriously. It is terrible. I've known 4 to 5 kids here in this town that didn't even make it to high school as a good pitcher because their arm was torn up by the time they were 12 years old. It's terrible. Truthfully, I feel for these kids.
No, I mean, you're passionate about this, and I'm not going to even make light of the subject because I think it is a relatively serious thing. Youth sports in general, I think a lot of the times has become so ultra competitive that it is lost, and it's become lost on not just the parent, but it's been lost on obviously the coaches and the people that should be taking care of obviously the kids. It's become lost of just trying to become more of a growth and also an educational opportunity for those folks that are interested in the sports. And yes, it can be competitive. And yes, I think there's times where it makes sense to be competitive. But ultimately, unfortunately, it seems as if it becomes too competitive too soon. And more times than not, it becomes competitive largely because most of the people that are in charge of these things, most of the people that run these things, and I say most because it's not everyone, but most of them are it's not living through their kids. I don't want to call it that because I think that's the thing that most people use.
Yeah.
But what they do is they use that as their competitive outlet. That is is their competitive outlet.
Sure. Yeah.
Then when they show up to the Little League Diamond, that's where they get juiced up and they want to feel like they're a part of something that is of quote unquote competitive sport when it should never really be that way. When do you draw the line in the sand of when it becomes competitive and when it becomes, what you would call traditionally like becoming educational and learning? I would say, in my opinion, 14 years old is probably the time frame in which I think
12, 13, Little League. When you leave Little League.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other sports too where they're trying to specialize too soon, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to sound like this guy on top of a soapbox, or even the person that's like old man yells at cloud type situation. But it's just a matter of trying to figure out what's best for the kid, and oftentimes that's been lost. And most of the time, the folks that really do try to take care of the kid are either one of two things: someone that's never been associated with sport at all, right? Or someone that's played sport at a really, really high level and they realize the limitations and the reality of getting to the highest level. Baseball, and I have this love-hate thing with baseball personally because it was most of my life. I mean, I didn't go on summer vacations as a kid. I did not do those things because that's what I did. Yeah. I played baseball, right?
That was your vacation, right?
That was your vacation. When you went to college, people think, great, yeah, being a student athlete's fun. I don't want to make it sound like I didn't have a good time. Sports got me very far in life. It was my motivational driving force behind a lot of my success and things that I've done. But you don't really get to be what I would call a kid, right? You don't get to go and hang out with your buddies on a weekend because you have somewhere to go or you have a tournament to be at. You can't really go to do what you would call family vacations because those are completely gone. And at the end of the day, what do you get it for it? Like, what did I ever get for it? And quite frankly, not a whole lot. That's the sad part about the whole thing is that at the end of the day, yeah, you can say, oh, you get a scholarship to go to college, you get this, that, and the other. But if you're playing baseball, I got a news flash for you. You ain't getting any money unless you're going pro. There's not money there. Now, having said all that, I've learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way through sports, so I'm appreciative of it. But we need, I don't know, and I've joked with you guys about this before. I don't know if Chatterbox will ever become this. But I do think it would be cool one day to use the power of a brand and build, it doesn't need to be big, but build some kind of youth sport organization that genuinely has good people in it and it's controlled from outside interests, and you literally focus on the development and that's it. It becomes more of a clinic, and also obviously there's game atmospheres and you build in those game things, but as far as the whole competitive spirit of it, I would like to remove that until a certain age.
Yeah,
But that's
almost don't keep score.
It's almost like if there's not a scoreboard, a lot of this stuff would go away, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think in 3rd and 4th grade football, for me, you never kept score. I mean, like, the players knew the score. You kept score in your mind, but there was nothing up on the scoreboard. You know, one thing that you alluded to there, and you spend so much of your time as a young athlete, and this is, if I can give any advice to kids, is don't pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Don't be Trace Fowler, the baseball player, because at some point that ends, and you're 23 years old and you have nothing to show for it. You're empty-handed, and you're like, all right, my life as a baseball.
Your identity can't be built within one thing.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of successful people, successful baseball players, professional athletes that have done that.
Right. I mean, even college. I mean, if you're a Division I college football player, your whole life is built around, I'm the football player. I'm Yodi, so-and-so. And then, you know, even if you go to Big Ten schools, not all those guys play professional football. After that, what are you? Expand what you are as a person to where people just don't identify you as one thing. Because at some point it does end. And that's kind of what Trace is getting at. Sports is great for so many things because it teaches you so many lessons in life. But also expand your horizons beyond sports. And please don't specialize. I don't know where that started in playing one sport in high school and stuff like that. If you're a good enough athlete to play multiple sports and you enjoy playing multiple sports, then play multiple sports.
Do what you enjoy. All right, next thing on the list is what? College football?
College football.
This is
they did not have Notre Dame in the top 4, which is egregious, preposterous.
This is straightforward to me. I don't even know how much time we need to spend on it.
None.
I think Casey can throw the rankings up there real fast. It looks like he's got them ready. I think it's what everybody expected. The only thing I would say at this point that I genuinely hope happens, if Ohio State and Michigan do play a close game, I don't think that should be an elimination game. And that's coming from somebody that's typically been hard on the Big Ten. Michigan has kind of put themselves in a spot where that's probably going to be the realistic thing that happens to them, and that's largely because of their non-conference schedule, which is really, really bad. And their in-conference schedule has not helped them a whole lot. But I would hope that if that's a close game, they look like they belong in the top 4, that they can stay in the top 4. I don't know why.
How many teams can make the college football playoffs up there right now? Obviously, the 4 that are currently in the top 4, Tennessee, Oregon.
All the way to 8.
And Mississippi, if they sneak into the SEC championship and win it?
Well, I don't really want to talk about Mississippi personally because they're not going to win this weekend. So
okay,
it's
so
one of those things where
1 through 8 is where you're at. And then
Clemson.
Clemson can still sneak in. I mean, I wouldn't say their odds are good, but they can still get in.
Impossible.
Clemson has better odds right now in Vegas than TCU does.
Well, that's because they think TCU is going to lose this weekend, and I think a one-loss TCU team is completely out.
Yeah,
that's where that comes from, right?
Right. Imagine if the Pac-12 teams are out. You know, they both lose. USC or Oregon loses one more time. If they lose a game, they're done. So then it comes, and then if TCU loses a game, it's a one-loss TCU team versus a one-loss Clemson team that wins a big, ACC championship.
Right.
Clemson's not out. I mean, they're not. The odds aren't good. It's not looking good.
No, but I mean, if you're a Clemson fan, you have to be realistic with your expectations right now and understand that it's going to basically be like who has a higher probability, the Browns to make the playoffs or Clemson to make the playoffs?
Clemson.
I'd say probably Clemson.
See, I think the Browns do personally. And it doesn't mean I think the Browns are going to make the playoffs. I just think that the whole situation and the way that Clemson lost, guys, come on.
It was manslaughter, wasn't it?
Well,
how can you keep Notre Dame out of the top 4 after that game?
Well, in all seriousness, really fast, do you think that Clemson would go over a one-loss, even a one-loss TCU, or even a one-loss Tennessee? That's impossible.
No, the world in which I think Clemson gets in.
So it's over.
Is one Big Ten team gets in.
That's
they're the ACC's champion. So they're the ACC champion over a team that didn't even play in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen. Right now, the way it's set up, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's set up to where the top 4 teams are basically picked based off of whatever the college football playoff committee values as the best 4 teams. It doesn't have anything to do with quote-unquote conference champions. They might say they value that, But let's
even
be
look
honest.
at Penn State in 2016. They didn't get in. They won the Big Ten.
All right. So I just think it's a clear situation where Clemson's out. I don't even know why Clemson's worthless talking about. I don't like Dabo.
There won't be any major shakeups in college in the playoffs till next week when UCLA and USC play. Like if
I've asked this 5 times. When's the 12-teamer coming? 24?
6.
26?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That far away?
Yeah, we got a ways. And that's
I'm going to be 30.
To my understanding of it, too, that's the 26th season, so that'll be like New Year's of 27, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So
Can we
like,
speed this up?
Dr. Oz is going to be president by then.
I don't know about that.
They tried to speed it up, but it sounded like it got shot down. I haven't read about it in a month or two, though, so I don't know what the update is.
All right, Trace. Let's move on.
Let's keep this quick,
Where
too.
do you, like, when are you under Zim's bed, in his closet? You're his boogeyman. Like, where are you hiding in his humble estate?
Well, I like how Zim made it appear and seem that way. I am looking forward to the time, and I don't know when this is going to happen, obviously, but I am looking forward to the time when you open up the old percentages, is what I'll call it, and the Bengals are on the right side of that.
The crystal ball?
Yeah. When you open the crystal ball and the Bengals are on the right side of that crystal ball, I can't wait to come into that chat and let everybody know that the Bengals.
You're going to be excited.
Yeah, I like to be Santa Claus from time to time, but I as I said to Zim, there's just certain weird times throughout the year where I'm going to get passionate about what I see, and if I bring my opinion up to a group of people that don't like it, then you know how I get sometimes, and that's fair. The truth is that this week is one of those weird weeks where I don't really have that. I don't have that strong, I can see it happening situation, but I am looking forward to sports gambling being legal in Ohio, because that makes life a lot easier for those that can see the future, as they say.
Yeah. Do you, as an opinionated man, and you like to make your opinions well?
Is it opinionated, or is it just? I guess it is opinionated.
Yeah.
Or is it confident?
As an opinionated man who likes to make his opinions well known, do you get more enjoyment out of being what you just described as Santa Claus and getting people excited and people like, or do you like when people are telling you you're wrong, then you're right? Do you like making people happy or sad? I think that
there's certainly more joy when people don't think that you're going to be right and then you're right. Certainly, yeah. I mean, would anybody say differently?
I like bringing people joy. I don't like making people sad. Brandon scoffed at that, but
I don't know.
Speaking of bringing joy,
yep.
Sean Spurlock's in the chat, so I just want to give a quick thanks to Sean for, yesterday we're out at lunch and I get a call from Baden High School, my alma mater, and said, "Hey, is Sean Spurlock still coming in for career day tomorrow?" And we're like, I had no clue that was happening. He said, "Yeah, sure." And then I get a call at 9 p.m. from the principal and saying, "Hey, Sean can't make it. Do you want to do it?" So I had to scrap together a presentation, 30-minute presentation for a career day, 3 different classes, and it was great.
What was the presentation?
Well, it was just about my life as a professional broadcaster. So I had a lot to insight on how to get into this field of broadcasting.
You didn't lie at all, did you?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay.
I do lie quite a bit, but I don't.
We got some more lies coming down the chat here. Let's go to the Cincy coaches thing. This is what I brought up to you earlier. Something fun. Maybe, I don't know if the chat wants to chime in or not, but I'm curious to see what your guys' opinion are. As far as the 5 major head coaches that we have in Cincinnati, so we'll run through those. We're going to have David Bell, right, Cincinnati Reds. Wes Miller, Bearcats.
Mm-hmm.
Fickle, Bearcats. Sean Miller, Musketeers, right? And then Zach Taylor with the Bengals.
And Tom Bolden at Lakota West.
Well, we're not going to go that far yet.
Okay.
Because I don't know if that kind of skews the odds here.
I'm kidding.
Which one is the last remaining? Which one's the last one remaining?
Who's going to stay at their current
stay
job
the longest?
Ooh.
See, this is a good question.
That's a good
So
question.
not the best. Who will be there
It's
the
not
longest?
the best. We're not arguing the best. Who's going to be?
So if Wes Miller is successful, he's probably going to, even though he's going into the Big 12, you could see him going, to his alma mater, going somewhere, moving on pretty quickly.
North
Yeah,
Carolina.
Simply put, who has the same job? The last, like at the chronological order, who's the last one standing?
I think my answer to that question is just however long Sean wants to coach.
Sean Miller.
Because he's not going to go anywhere else.
I agree. I think this is Sean Miller's final.
Sean Miller's final stop for sure. My only thing to that would be is obviously how long does he want to continue to do it for? 1 and 2. Is there a small chance? And I'm not suggesting, Paul, that you need to like take a huge take on this, but if there is the chance to where he does have a success rate of a Travis Steele or maybe worse, to where there is struggle there, and I don't see that happening. But let's just say, how long is that leash?
Very long. Very long. Yeah, I think this is Sean's program to see out for a while.
So Sean's definitely the top runner, I think, of all.
Yeah.
What's the next
It's
guy?
up to him. I mean, I can't. I don't think he's going anywhere else.
No, he will not. He will not go anywhere
Unless
else.
Arizona comes calling.
No,
I've heard he wants that job.
No, Sean Miller will not go anywhere else because of one thing, and that is largely the loyalty or the risk or whatever term you'd like to use that Xavier provided him of letting him come back and coach when he had obviously a situation that was sitting out there that had a little bit of a black eye to it that he caused, and he had already left them once. You know, it's almost like he's coming back to his high school sweetheart that has been loyal. It's like, you'd be an idiot to leave twice, man.
Yeah.
You see how the first one went?
Right. The chat's saying Zach Taylor, and here's the right. Marvin Lewis was here for 16 years, right? Yeah. But I feel like the goalposts have moved a little bit in that building, in Paycor Stadium, because when Marvin was here, you know, Mike Brown, who's still making the decision, was up to his own devices, and he let Marvin run his course. You know, now there's been, you know, another whisper in Mike Brown's ear with Katie Blackburn.
Right.
And the goalposts have moved, and the fact that the Bengals did make the Super Bowl last year. If, you know, Zach Taylor misses the postseason 2 consecutive years, are we gonna run Zach Taylor out there for a 3rd straight year under Joe Burrow?
Well, I'll tell you this much: there's a small chance, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, and I'm not wishing this to happen by any means. There's a small chance that Joe Burrow becomes very comfortable in his own skin, and if he has any issues or becomes a little toxic with the head coach sometimes. Yeah. I've seen it happen.
Sure.
Twice. Who's going to have more weight in that building? Zach Taylor or Joe Burrow? We all know the answer to that. You don't need to answer it. It's just that's something that could be on the horizon. So we think as a group, Zach Taylor's the next guy.
No, I
Fickle?
think David Bell's got the shortest leash. Will David Bell last a year?
No. We're going in reverse order. So basically, we all think that Sean Miller, which we all do agree there. Sean Miller is the last guy standing.
Yes.
We then go to Zach Taylor.
Or Fickle.
Or Fickle. You think Fickle's in that mix?
I think Fickle could outlast Taylor only because they're going to the Big 12. And if Freeman has some success at Notre Dame, he's not leaving. You know, he passed up the Michigan State job.
Yeah, there's like 2-3 jobs that it feels like Fickle's
who
leaving for Ohio State.
Who does Fickle leave to go to?
Notre Dame.
Let me ask you this. If Florida opens up in 2 years, does Fickle take that?
See, that's top tier SEC, and by top tier I mean like, you know, Saban stepping down, Kirby Smart. I don't know.
I think it's safe to say that if Saban steps down, quite honestly, Fickle's not in the running for Alabama. There's enough people, in my opinion, that have been like earmarked at Alabama that they would try to go get next. And honestly, might not like to hear it, but I think Dabo is one of those guys. I think that you could probably even go get like a guy.
But then would he go to Clemson?
Would Fickle leave USC for
Clemson?
Clemson?
I could see Alabama being a situation like Villanova where Jay Wright retires and they hire Kyle Neptune within 1 hour of each other. Like it's just appointed.
Or like a Duke, right? Like
or John Shire. Yeah, any of those.
Basically a situation where like when
it's just a smooth transition.
Saban picks the next guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Saban probably does pick the next guy.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
This is a good question.
And that's where this is where, honestly, like Wes.
I see Fickle lasting longer than Zach Taylor.
Wow.
So then where's Wes Miller in this mix? Because
I don't know, because
he's either got a short leash or he's got a real long leash going to the Big 12. I think it's binary with Wes.
I think Wes, I'm a believer in Wes Miller. Truly.
I do. Yeah, I think he's a
I'm
good
a
coach.
believer. I think he's going to have UC. I mean, I don't know what success for
It's
UC
going to take
in the
a
Big
top
12
blue
looks,
blood to open up for Wes.
but I think Wes is. I don't even think it's going to take a blue blood for Wes to leave. I really don't.
Really?
I think any step up and Wes gets out of here.
Really?
Yeah.
Big
And I don't
12's
know.
good
I
enough.
don't know what's between UC and a blue blood. I mean, what is between UC and a blue blood?
Like, I mean, UC fans are going to hate me for saying this, but
Like a Big Ten school, like a
Yeah.
Big Ten school that has
Like
success
in Indiana.
But they're going to beat UC in the Big 12 in a better conference.
I know, but I just wonder. It all comes down to this, and it's this only. It comes down to, in my opinion, like boosters and NIL for basketball, because basketball is one of the few sports where you genuinely need a few guys, and that could be the difference. Football is really not that way. I mean, yeah, quarterback can be that, but football takes so many guys, and there's such a big pool out there to pick from in football that I think you can get away with kind of going and finding guys that traditionally might not be the guys. And that's been proven. TCU's kind of proven that right now, right? Like they're playing at a high level, and quite frankly, they're nowhere near the types of ranks of your Ohio States and Alabamas and Georgias, et cetera. But I just don't know if you're at UC, and if this is what I get at. If UC can't give Wes the support to land some of these big guys that he thinks that he has the lead or the edge on, and they get taken away from him in the last second from the likes of a Kansas, the likes of Kentucky, the likes of whoever, and so far he's done a decent job of that. We'll see if he can land Isaiah Collier. But if that happens, I'm telling you, you got to think as a competitor, Wes Miller becomes frustrated, right? He's like, and as soon as I get a chance to be able to land these guys somewhere else that can give me the money, you might be right. Like, what if Alabama boosters, right, for instance, they've been competitive, come in and say, this is how much money we're going to give you for NIL. We want a winning basketball program right here. We know you can do it anywhere in the country. If we give you the resources that UC can't, will you come? I think the answer could be yes.
Sure. Okay, so...
But UC might give him those things. Like when you move to the Big 12, UC might have the things that he needs.
Are there schools like Louisville and Syracuse considered blue bloods?
Louisville's got a lot of ground to make up now after everything it's gone through in the last 5 years. But they also just hired a coach.
Well,
Syracuse. No, I don't think Syracuse is a blue blood.
Okay, would Wes Miller leave UC for those schools?
Syracuse to get to the ACC? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. And you look, though, too, you look at the Big 12 and what they're bringing in. They're bringing in Houston, Kelvin Sampson. They're bringing in BYU, always a good basketball program at BYU.
Jimmer still there?
Might as well be. He's still playing for the Shanghai Sharks.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's very good.
Go to a game?
I'd love to. But, yeah, I mean, TCU, Jamie Dixon, Kansas, obviously, Baylor's damn near one of the best programs in the country right now, consistently.
Mm-hmm. Head coaches matter a lot in the sport, more than any other sport, man.
So that's where I say with Wes, it could be binary in that if you miss the tournament this year and then you go to the Big 12 next year with a very, very young team and it doesn't pan out relatively quickly, but people's stock is still high on him, does he jump? That's kind of what you look at. It's kind of like what it is? You know what I'd compare it to? Is kind of like the Shaka Smart Texas situation. He didn't get fired. He just sort of saw the writing on the wall and said, hey, look, there's a school that has the opportunity to care about basketball like Marquette does. I'm going to go take that. And Chris Beard goes and takes the Texas job.
Sure.
So it's kind of this, not exactly the same, but kind of in that same vein.
Is David Bell the manager of the Reds next offseason?
I think that he is.
I think he has to.
Man.
Listen,
but it's not
David
his fault.
Bell. See, that's where I have a problem with people saying it's not his fault. Personally,
you think it is his fault?
Obviously, it can't be all of his fault, but I do think there's something to what Tom says from time to time. I think there is something to the idea. There's something to the idea of building like a culture and having kind of what I would call an aurora around the facilities. And when I listen to David Bell, let me tell you, he reminds me of like a Zach Taylor. Maybe in a situation where Zach Taylor obviously has good players, but let me tell you something. If Zach Taylor didn't have good players, you can talk about culture all you want. At some point, that shtick gets old. And my thing with David Bell is like, I'd like for him to put his foot down from time to time and not run guys out there forever. Like, that's my main problem with David. It's like, how long do we give these guys a leash to go out there and play every day? And you're not going to hear me complain about a guy hitting 130 3 weeks into the season and still being out there. That's fine. But, I mean, we ran Eugenio Suarez out there literally for 3 months straight, and my man was hitting like $180. It's like, you got to like sit the guy on the bench for a little while here and bring someone else in here. I would also say this. David Bell's in a tough situation because he's got to deal with this Joey Votto situation, which I love Joey Votto as much as anybody. But let's face it, there's a decent chance that man should not be probably playing every day because he's getting to the point in his career where that's just not something that should exist. But he's going to have to because that's just the role he's in. He's in a Matt LaFleur type situation where are you going to bench Aaron Rodgers? Probably should just to give it a shot and see what happens. But he's not going to.
Justin Fields?
No, Justin Fields is real good running back in the NFL, and that's all I'll leave it.
The thing about David Bell is there's no buzz. There's no excitement. There's no horizon there. You don't see it getting better with David Bell. You can't imagine it getting that much better. You know, I like it. You know, I'm a Cubs fan. David Bell's been a better manager than David Ross. David Ross, this is his 4th year now, and has been a much, a losing team than the Reds have. But there's an excitement about David Ross. And maybe it has something to do with what happened when he, at the final stretch of his career, won a World Series, hit that home run in Game 7. But there's nothing there. There's no sun.
But the chat's asking the question that you're asking, Paul, which is like, you fire David Bell, how's it get better? It's not so much the X's and O's on the field. It's not who you're going to put in the lineup, how you're going to order them. Are you going to hit and run? Are you going to bunt in the situation? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you step up to the press conference or when you step up after the game, you start taking some onus on the fact that you need to play better. Every time I've ever seen David Bell talk on the interviews, it's like, we're struggling right now, but we're going to figure it out. We got everything figured out. I'd like for him to stand up there one time and just say, you know what? The reality is right now, we're not very good, and some people are going to have to figure it out, and we need to play better, or else they're going to see some guys that need to fight for their job. How in the world do we keep playing Aristides Aquino when this guy literally swings at curveballs that are 50 feet? I'm trying not to curse right now. 50 feet for 4 games in a row, and we keep running him out there. Aquino came in here, and everyone was going to talk about how he was a great offensive threat. He was big time, the Punisher, as my man Tom would say. He's such a bad hitter now that now we hold our hand up and say, do you see how good this man is in right field? He's such a great outfielder. Really? Really? How long are we going to keep running these guys out there for? And you know what? At some point, I don't know if David Bell's making those decisions or if it's someone else. But there for the longest time, I love Kyle Farmer to death. But we're running Kyle Farmer out there like he's this everyday shortstop at a major league level. At what point do you say, you know what? We're moving Kyle Farmer to third base. We're going to play some of our young guys, and we're going to see how it goes. And we're going to start figuring it out. And we're not giving guys 3 months to figure it out. We're going to give them 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a culture issue at times.
Yeah, David Bell. At this point, I'm thinking David Bell is a bookmark. I mean, they're going to keep him there until they're ready to win, and then get rid of him. I mean, if you keep a constant revolving door, what's it matter at the program when you're not even trying to win?
Let me ask you this: if everyone thinks culture doesn't matter, et cetera, what happened to the Phillies?
Who said that culture doesn't matter?
Well, I'm just saying, like in the chat, everyone's like, in the chat, people are like, well, they don't have anyone better to bring up. Like it's like this, like, oh, we can't fix anything. Well, I'll tell you what's not going to fix it is just doing the same thing over and over again.
But the Phillies were ready to win.
But they weren't winning.
Okay, you're right. I mean, yeah,
at some point,
I guess my point is that the Reds aren't in a position to win right now. So why keep revolving the door? Why keep pirouetting around?
The only thing I would say to that is that this is the belief system that I have. At some point, the expectations in the building need to change to a certain extent, and it's going to require someone to come in and demand those expectations to be met, and that doesn't have wins and losses attached to it. That's not my problem with David Bell. Watch David Bell's interviews from time to time, and you tell me if you think for a second that guy can control and lead men, a clubhouse. I'm not trying to be shitty about it, and maybe I'm this old guy yells at cloud right now and wants a guy to come in and get everyone fired up and say we suck. But outside of Dusty, right, in Cincinnati, Who do we adore, folks? We adore Sparky Anderson. Was he a nice guy?
No.
Not really.
No.
Do we like Lou Piniella around here? We do, don't we? And why is that? Because he goes out and he throws bases when things aren't going well, and he gets in people's faces and he demands excellence. And yes, they have better players. I'm not going to argue that. But at the end of the day, I just want a little more fire out of David Bell in some situations. And stop making the excuse that we have young guys and we need blah, 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 blah. I'm tired of it. Like, let's figure out a way to win.
Is Mike Leach available? Just get Mike Leach up here to man.
He'd be entertaining at least.
Right, it'd be great. Great press conferences.
All
right. So this next topic
is great.
Yeah, I don't know how aware you guys are, but LeBron James, who I think is a great person, a guy with the spotlight on him for 20 years now, and the one thing we can say is he's a pathological liar. I don't know why he keeps lying about this. And we have a montage, a compilation, and this is brought up from him claiming to tell all the Miami Heat his first year down in South Beach about Migos because Takeoff died. R.I.P. to Takeoff. Did you know about Takeoff? Did you know Takeoff?
No, really, not a big.
Did you know he passed away?
I did know all that. I also say with the LeBron thing is like just kind of a weird thing because they're all like white lies. They're not.
It's just
they're not really like lies that you should be like.
Why are you lying about this?
Right.
So go ahead and play this clip. This is what has started all these memes on Twitter. But go ahead and play this clip. I don't know how long it is.
I've been listening to those guys for so long. I was listening to those guys when my first year with the Heat in 2010. And you can ask any one of my teammates back then, they had no idea who the Migos was. They were like cursing me out when I would play it throughout the weight room, would play it throughout the locker room. I was like, I'm telling you, these guys are next. I'm letting you know right now these days, like, turn this off. I don't want to hear this. And just fast forward, I mean, just knowing, take off personally and send my condolences to Quavo and the family and the whole QC family and everybody. I'm listening to.
Do you think he just had the year wrong?
Well, yeah. What's funny is he says his first year down in Miami. You guys, Migos is next. Migos did not drop their first mixtape until 2011. We have receipts, LeBron. Why are you lying about this? Why does he do this?
Paul thinks he got the year wrong. Maybe I don't. I would say this.
But this isn't the first example.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think that the problem LeBron's going to run into here with this whole situation is that there's receipts on other things that he clearly is telling a kind of a white lie about, and there's a plethora of them on YouTube if you go through them. And it's one of those situations where I feel like LeBron sometimes gets in a spot where he wants to feel a part of the crowd and he's wanting to relate to people. And it's like, why do that, man? Just say you don't know, or just act like you're not sure what someone's talking about. But yeah, I mean that's a weird psychological thing LeBron's got going on.
The best is, people have made fun of him for the longest time. He makes a big show about reading. LeBron does. When walking into the arena, you kind of get a little catwalk there, and he's always reading a book. But people have come to realize that over the years, he's always on page one. He goes out to Books A Million and gets himself a book. It's a prop, and he opens it up. And one time he was holding a Malcolm X book in a press conference, and we don't have to play the clip because I think it's a minute long. But they ask him what he's reading about the book, and you just see the hamster wheel just spinning. He's like, oh, well, I mean, I'm early on, and I haven't read. And he just circles the question about what his favorite thing is that he's reading in Malcolm X.
He reminds me of a guy that when you're sitting in class in high school and you're like either
did you read
talking
the chapter, Trace?
or you're talking to your friends or whatever, and then the teacher's like, hey, Trace, what do you think about that? And you haven't been paying attention for the last 5 minutes, and you've got no clue, and you just like start to try to use context clues, and you're just looking for any grasp or hope of things. That's what he's doing in half of these clips. He's just like, I mean, it's an interesting thought, I mean, that's one of those things where, and you're just looking around like, someone help me out. That's what he's doing. I don't get it. But overall, like you said, he's a nice guy. Did you brought snacks in here today to review? Like, what are we doing?
Okay, so this is the box lunch. Yeah, Brandon, if you want to give them out. like 98% sure.
What
Paul,
are
you
these?
don't have. These are
How many
zingers.
of these you got? We got
Zingers
one
are
for everybody.
awesome.
These are zingers.
Zingers
Got one
are
for everyone.
amazing.
I don't think I've ever had a zinger.
So this is good then. This is the box lunch. We like to,
Thank
this
you.
is lunchtime. We like to try something. You're on a
Wait, have
imagine
you guys not had zingers?
I've never had a zinger.
you're on a
I've never
field
had a
trip.
zinger.
You're going to the Cincinnati Historical Museum.
Sorry,
Your
man.
mom packs a lunch and you get a little treat. This treat today is the Hostess Zingers, and I want everyone's honest review.
Is Hostess the company that stopped making Twinkies? Is that it?
Oh, they still make Twinkies. They briefly stopped, but
They briefly stopped?
All right.
So what do I expect here? This is a cake with like lemon on top of it, or no?
it's iced vanilla flavored.
What's the difference between this and a Twinkie? Besides the top.
That's it.
There's cream in the middle. It is basically a Twinkie, guys. I mean, there's no way around this. The Zinger is originally chocolate flavored. This is iced vanilla. So this is basically a Twinkie.
This is
Very
high
good.
level. This is high level.
Yeah.
Very good.
This is better than a Twinkie.
Better than a Twinkie. I've
This
had
is good.
Twinkies.
That's what I was saying, guys.
I've never
Zingers
even
are
heard
awesome.
of this.
Casey.
Me neither. Did not know
Casey,
these.
This is
you're,
good.
You're a man of good words here.
Yeah.
These are called zingers.
Yeah.
My
Give me
computer died, by the way. I have no idea if the chat's saying anything at all, but
give me a 5-second review of the Zinger.
5 seconds. I don't know if he's got that in him.
Exquisite and delightful.
That's great.
3 words.
It's great. Paul, you got anything to add about the Zinger?
I couldn't have said it better than Casey.
I mean, the sponge cake.
I think
it
you
doesn't
could- I think you
crumble in your
actually
fingers. Doesn't crumble in your fingers, but man.
No, there's something. I'll say this: like outside the great taste, there's something about it being nice and easy to hold.
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
not
make
the-
a mess.
Right. It's
You know?
well, I like how firm it is. Like a Twinkie, will crumble if you
Like
held
yeah,
it.
you start biting into it, it starts falling all over
Right.
yourself. Like those aren't the best.
Stop.
Snacks.
If there's any moms watching, which based on our demographics, I say that's
No.
that's a slim chance.
slim
But if
chance
there's
is-
any dads that pack their kids' lunch, don't put Nature Valley granola bars in your kid's lunchbox because that's just getting
Do
everywhere.
you have any more of those?
Yeah, I've got a full box. I got a 10-pack.
I'll have one more. That's
We'll
good.
we'll have a snack every day from here on out. This is the review time. This is the part of the box lunch, and that
Yeah.
was the first one, the Zingers.
What's the Swiss rolls?
Swiss
I'm
rolls
a
are
big
good.
fan of Swiss rolls, and
Swiss rolls.
they have to be like refrigerated. I know it's weird, but you get a refrigerated
Oh, yeah.
Swiss roll. That's
Now-
where it's
You
at.
don't want
Now
a
if-
hot one.
What's that?
You don't want a hot one.
Well, I'm just talking about room temperature versus like a nice, nice chilled Swiss roll. Scam of the day. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is you. I took the scam of the day over last time. You said you have a scam of the day, Trace. And
Yeah,
Trace,
this is
I'll give you the floor.
this is no doubt not a hot take at all. And I wonder, like, is there something that we can do as a society to fix this? But I'll get relatively specific about this. But tickets have become a scam as a whole. Ticket selling has become a scam as a whole. The whole fees that are associated with tickets, the whole resale market of tickets, the whole thing has become a scam. But there's one individual company that we all know no one likes, but they have a monopoly. And I want to know if there's a way to fix this. But we got to figure out Ticketmaster's situation.
All the homies say
Biden
Ticketmaster.
tweeted it the other day. Did you see that? Biden
Well,
tweeted
I mean,
about Ticketmaster.
I don't have
the
high
other
hopes
day.
of it getting of that being a top agenda priority right now within our political spectrum. But I do have high hopes of the people. And I'm just wondering, how does this get resolved? Because Ticketmaster is associated and or bought out by Live Nation. Live Nation is the monopoly company for the most part that owns all of the venues that all of the artists play in. So we have a situation where if you want to play in a venue that's even relatively the good enough size to be able to hold a concert,
Yeah.
guess who you have to use as a ticket provider? Ticketmaster. And Ticketmaster just so happens to have all of these convenient fees that are associated with these tickets that mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
like,
nothing.
How is there a quote unquote
They can charge whatever.
Okay, we're giving free ads. But they all do it. Like in all honesty, they all do it. Like there's the StubHubs of the world. There's the TickPicks. There's the no fees. Guess what, Brandon? Don't be a sucker. They build them in somewhere else, and then they have the fees on that everyone else has. Okay, well I'll give a review on it then. I'll check it out. But
Can't be better than a Zinger.
no, that's
That
impossible.
zinger damn near changed my stacking experience.
How do you fix that situation? It's unfixable, right?
Yeah.
There actually needs to be like legislation broken to break up the monopoly. We need Teddy Roosevelt back from the dead, the bull moose to come.
You want to hear? You want to hear a free? Now I've held on to this idea for a while, but this is the free Shark Tank idea of the day. Ready? I thought they should have had this for the longest time. There should be an app that is an official partner of all of these ticketing services, right? And what it does is it scans tickets. It's a QR code type thing on your phone. You open it up and you can scan a ticket, and it will let you know in real time if that ticket is valid. So think of this. Yes, we have these digital tickets, but they still have the ability to print them off, right? You can print tickets off.
Yeah.
You can go and scan people outside of these stadiums.
Yeah.
If you're able to, as a consumer, when you're buying a scalp ticket, to be able to pull your phone out and like scan the ticket and be like, this ticket hasn't been used yet at the gate. Now, we all know there's a small chance that you could scan it, buy the ticket, and then 2 minutes later, someone goes in the gate.
Yeah.
But more times than not, that's not going to happen. More times, if someone's scamming you, they've sold it to 10 people and it's already been used, right? Why doesn't that exist? How is that not a thing?
Have you been scammed before? Have you been hurt?
I've not been hurt, but I know people that have.
Well, it kind of exists.
In fact, I have been. But the Reds were nice enough to let me in the building.
Well, I went to a Pearl Jam concert at Wrigley Field back in 2015, and I bought 3 tickets online. They scammed them, and they said, sorry, these tickets have already been used 20 minutes ago. So then I take a step inside. They're like, just wait right here.
Yep.
We'll deal with you in a second. And they brought me inside of Wrigley Field, and we looked around to my 2 buddies, and we just kept walking. Like they brought us past the ticket people, and we just kept walking, and no one ever said anything. But yeah, we got into that game, which also, by the way, Pearl Jam back in the 90s tried to fight Ticketmaster and host concerts that were not using Ticketmaster venues.
Everett Henry came up with a great idea. We're going to make this the next week. We got to make a tier maker, guys. Of
snacks. Well, we will slowly after every show. I'll bring a snack in.
Yes, you bring the snack in,
and then we'll rank them as they come in.
Yeah,
all right.
No doubt.
What food related to close this show? We're gonna do we're gonna pick lunch live on the show. It was requested.
Can the chat give me like a underrated? This is one thing I will admit this. Okay, I am not a very cultured person, as many of you know. What's that?
You're cultured enough.
I don't know, man. I very rarely go to specific, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Hypothetically speaking, of course, right? If I were to try to go to a nice dinner that's not...
Are you taking Jordan down on a date?
That's not Ruby's. She's not going to see this, so it's safe to say that I don't have to worry about her seeing this content at all. That's not Ruby's, right? I've been to Jeff Ruby's plenty of times. I like Jeff Ruby's. I got nothing against Jeff Ruby's.
Too much.
Not as too much. I don't even say it's too much. It's just like, sometimes you got to not wear something out. Where do you go?
So I feel like
the chat's going to help me out on this.
For my anniversary, and this is going to require you. I mean, it's hard to get reservations at this place.
Oh God, it will.
It's called Soto. Soto. It's in downtown. It is an Italian restaurant. I booked my reservation 6 weeks in advance, and I ate at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. So it's really hard to get reservations, but it's not too. I mean, it's expensive, but it's not as expensive as Ruby's. It's a fantastic place. I highly enjoyed my meal. It was great.
Experience? Soto. You got to wear something like super nice there?
No. I mean.
What's the dress code at Soto?
I mean, it's not black tie, but I mean, I wore a button up because it was my anniversary. But there was also people there in polos.
Okay. Any recommendations over there?
Not as great
from the production crew.
Well, yeah, but what kind of food are you looking for? Anything?
Birds. Sorry, that was funny.
Birds is great. That's a great answer.
What is
Son of a Butcher just opened up in Liberty Center. That's a steakhouse.
That's Nada, by the way.
Nada's
a Mexican restaurant. It's very good.
Very good.
I like Nada a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there a few times with.
Here's not a expensive place, but fantastic food. It's an OTR. The Eagle. You said you've never been to the Eagle.
Oh, Eagle is very good.
It's
Great
very
chicken
good.
sandwich.
It's
chicken sandwich, fries, and a beer is going to run you like $21, but it's good.
It's great.
Where are these? What's the location rank on all of these?
They're all downtown.
So they're all in the same.
Yeah.
What's it called? I'll give them a shot. Blinkers Tavern. Who Who has the second? Is it Jags, I guess? Who's the second? Like
Jags is in Westchester.
I'm saying it's Jeff Ruby's, Jags.
Oh, Walt's Hitching Post in Northern Kentucky. I've been there. I had a gift card there one time.
Is that above?
Great
Son
spot.
of a butcher, SOB at Liberty Center just
Walt's
opened up.
Hitching Post is where Al Michaels was there a couple weeks ago.
Alec Wallace?
Tom Hardy
is
was
he a
there.
Hamiltonian? Is Alec Wallace a Hamiltonian? Said Tano's good. Alec, if you're a Hamiltonian, we love you. Yeah.
We're getting somewhere, guys. All right, so maybe by the next show I'll make a decision.
All right. All right, we got the
wheel of names.
We got the wheel.
We got it.
And just so everyone knows, this is a reverse raffle till the very last one.
Yes, to the last one.
Just delete the.
Well, I gotta write it in one at a time. So, but
you all got to give a suggestion.
We all got to give a suggestion here for lunch.
Paul, go ahead.
Chat gives us one suggestion too for lunch.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, lunch is getting. If we're gonna be honest, guys, lunch is getting expensive.
$15.
I know.
We gotta start figuring out a way to maybe
boxing lunch.
We gotta maybe one time a week we order pizza around here just so we can split the bill and maybe save some money. I don't know.
I'm with you.
It is.
It's running us
up. It is
up.
box lunch. Spur did.
Throw McAllister's on there.
Throw McAllister. All right, that's Paul's.
Oh, Sir Boys got us. We got White Castle. These are terrible.
No, I just went to White Castle. I'm nixing Long John Silver's.
Okay, Sir Boy says Penn Station. Long John Silver's.
No, I got to nix Penn Station. I can't eat there.
Brandon suggested Popeyes. Throw Popeyes on there.
Popeyes?
Oh, he already ate. But
he already ate. No.
I'm not saying Niels. I'm gonna go barbecue. I'm gonna go Rib City.
Oh, okay. Throw Taco Bell on there.
This is my thing with Paul.
You want it cheap.
He said he can't go to White Castle because he ate there the other day. This dude eats Taco Bell every other day.
I haven't had it in a while.
As in what, Monday?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I'm not counting the thing I did on Saturday. It was bad.
I've ever heard in my life.
Wendy's is so
I'll tell you what, Alex Wallace with a banger, dude.
Planet Fitness.
Taquiero. You got to put the guanajuato on there.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce that.
I'll tell you how you
I
pronounce
got a dentist.
I asked these people 5 times. It's taquiero, guanajuato.
You don't have time for that.
Basically, I think it's
What
just
time's
a
your
taco
dentist
shop in
2:30?
Mexico. All I hear are excuses over there from Paul. He sounds like David Bell.
What excuse am I giving?
Literally. He has a problem for every solution, chat.
We're gonna say no to Jocko's.
We bring up a topic, Paul says no.
What did I say?
Sean
says
Dixon.
No on White Castle.
Sean
No on
Dixon said
Penn
grilled
Station.
chicken from
No
home.
on Taquero Guanajuato. I mean, how many more do we have to say no to, Paul?
All right, are we good? Do we got a wheel?
right now, I have McAllister's, Rib City, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Taquiero, Chipotle.
All right,
That's
put
good.
it up there.
Yeah, put it up there.
All right.
I'll tell you right now, I do not want Chipotle, so I'll be rooting against that.
I do not want Chipotle. But if it is Chipotle, we're going to Chipotle.
Yeah,
we're slaves to the wheel. Now it
Slaves
is
to the
a
wheel.
reverse raffle here.
Reverse raffle, and
no.
that is terrible news.
Oh no, the best option is off.
Richards is a good one. We put that on the
McAllister's
next
made
wheel.
it past the first one though. That's new. McAllister's been on this list for
We
2
need
weeks.
it. Something's going on with the wheel where he's not allowed to hit remove while it's in there. So he has to take it out and then put it back. What's that about?
I have no idea.
Whatever. It's
All right, here we go.
technology. Let's do it.
Come
Spin
on.
it again.
I have a good feeling about McAllister's.
Don't ruin it.
Oh,
Don't
no.
ruin it.
Get out of there, Chipotle.
That is big
Yes.
time. That's a big time win right there.
Big time.
Man.
It won't let me remove it.
Yeah,
I have to just spam it until,
I don't know, man.
or maybe it just times out. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a time. It's a timeout type thing.
I think if we don't get Wendy's.
Oh no,
McAllister's.
McAllister.
It's got to win eventually. Dang.
McAllister's is the Dusty Baker of managing.
You know it's good. You just got to win.
That's right.
You just got to win
mean,
eventually.
It's great. No one's complaining about it, but it just never can
we
get
want
over
it.
the hump. But it eventually will.
Well, this isn't looking too good.
All right. That is.
All right.
That is. This.
Are we gonna get some fried okra?
You know we're ending up at Wendy's here.
So to be clear,
Yeah,
this is what it lands on.
Yes, we
Yeah.
will
What
go
it
to
ends-
wherever it lands.
It's what it lands on.
Last time I went to Rib City.
Oh, man.
Last time I went to Rib City, IU
Final
came
two
back
here.
from 20 points.
All right,
against
here we go.
Michigan.
Here we go. This is what it lands on.
Rib City, Rib City, Rib City, Rib City.
For Chatterbox's lunch.
Oh! No! Dave Thomas. You son of a gun. You son of a gun, you got us.
Disaster.
Disaster has struck. Even though I'm the one who put Wendy's on.
All right, we got to go to Wendy's. We're a slave to the wheel.
What a disaster of a lunch.
All right, well, let's go.
I do think that if we're committed to this, there should be an option on there that is no lunch at all. You want to talk about some real
From here on out.
anxiety? You want to put some real anxiety on there?
From here on out, you're not allowed eating. That's going to be on
no
the wheel.
lunch.
No
lunch. You got to work
One
through
punishment.
lunch.
All right.
All right, guys.
All right, we're out of
It's
here.
been fun.
Yep, see you guys.
Spicy nugs it is. Jolly. Take care of yourself. Till Friday, and we'll tell Tom about his terrible takes on Friday. See you, everybody.
See ya.